Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the State Game Commission, soon to be the State Wildlife Commission, meeting here in Albuquerque. We have a large agenda today, so let's get going. Director Sloan, please call the roll.
Commissioner Witt,
Present.
Commissioner Lopez, Commissioner Harwood,
Present.
Commissioner Fulfer, Vice Chair Clemente,
Present.
Chair Stone.
Present.
You have a quorum.
Thank you, Director Sloan. Let's proceed to introduction of guests, and let's start with Commissioner Lopez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Lopez from District 3 up in the Rio Arriba County area, north of Español, north of Albuquerque, almost near the Colorado border from Cebolla. So great to see you all here this morning, and let's get to work.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. Fernando Clemente, Vice Chair of the Commission from Sunland Park, New Mexico.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks again for being here. Richard Stunt, Chair of the Commission.
Good morning, Kyle Harwood from La Cienega outside of Santa Fe. Thank you.
Morning, Christopher Witt, representative from District 5 on the commission at Bernalillo County. Welcome to my home county.
Good morning, Commissioners, members of the public. Mike Sloan, Director of the Department.
Morning, Commissioners, members of the public. Stuart Liley, Chief of Wildlife.
Good morning, Commissioners, members of the public. Paul Varela, Chief of Administrative Services.
Good morning, Commissioners and public. My name is Stephanie Tapia. I am the Senior Accountant with the Department of Game and Fish.
Oh, introduce. Okay. So good morning, Commissioners, public. My name is Jane Tinker as part of the external audit team, and you'll be seeing our presentation later.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Charlie Dresk. I'm just a citizen, hunter, and fisherman. Thank you.
David Heft, retired wildlife biologist, hunter, trapper, Bay Hill, New Mexico.
Good morning. My name is Lancy Wetman. I'm with the New Mexico Department of Justice.
Garth Reeder, Los Alamos.
Good morning, Commissioners, members of the public. I'm Kirk Patton, Chief of Fisheries.
Good morning, Commissioners. Jackie Hall with the Carol Peachy Foundation based in Santa Fe.
Good morning, Commissioners, members of the public. Tim Simbel. I'm the Colonel for Field Operations with the Department.
Good morning, Commissioners and public. Lieutenant Sean Carroll over Revocations.
Good morning, Commissioners, member of the public. I'm Benjamin Bird. I'm the captain of the Southeast area.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Annabella Miller, and I'm with the Western Landowners Alliance.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Lance Bernal from Vermejo Park Ranch.
Good morning, Commissioners and members of the public. My name is Abby O'Connor, and I'm with the New Mexico Cattle Growers.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Roy Farr, rancher from Catron County.
Morning, Commissioners, members of the public. My name is Jeremy Martin. I'm the department's general counsel.
Good morning, Commissioners, members of the public. I'm Brandon Wynn. I'm just a normal citizen from Albuquerque.
Good morning, Commissioners, members of the public. Jesse Dubell. I'm the Executive Director of the New Mexico Wildlife Federation.
Good morning, Commissioner Richard Wynn from SCBA.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm a hunter instructor with the department.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Darren Vaughn. I am the Communications Director for the department.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Miranda Twitchell, Senior IT.
Good morning, Commissioners and the public. My name is Eric Arce, and I'm a photographer and editor for the department.
Good morning, Commissioners and members of the public. Tristana Carroll. I'm the Chief of the Information and Education Division.
Good morning, Commissioners and the public. I'm Kurt Kaufman, Assistant Chief of Education.
Good morning, Commissioners and public. My name is Natasha Montoya, and I'm the Assistant Chief of Information. We currently have 10 attendees online, and no one's raised their hand at this point. Oh, there he is.
One gentleman too would like to introduce himself.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Kindly go ahead.
Good morning, Commissioners and members of the public. My name is Mark Matini. I'm from Pewati Village, Laguna.
Mark, we can't hear you.
Okay, let's see. I'm looking.
Okay, we'll move on. It was Mark McTiny.
So that's everyone?
No, it's not.
Just came in.
Oh, come on. There's nothing here.
Okay, moving on, agenda item number 4, approval of the agenda. I'd like to note that Commissioner Harwood has a conflicting schedule today. So I'll be moving executive session from agenda item number 22 to our lunch period. So Commissioner Harwood can participate in executive session. Is there any other discussion of the agenda, Commissioners? So again, moving agenda item number 22 to our lunch hour.
I so move to make a motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Agenda item number 5, approval of the minutes from the February 20th, 26th meeting in Roswell. Any discussion on the minutes, Commissioners? Is there a motion to approve?
I so move to approve the minutes as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Agenda item number 6 is approval of hunting and fishing privileges, revocations. Commissioners, is there any discussion on the revocations as presented? Is there a motion to approve?
I so move to approve the hunting and fishing privileges revocation as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, agenda item number 7 is the first of 2 opportunities for the public to make public on any topic. We do ask that if you comment at this time, you refrain from commenting during the general comment period near the end of the meeting. We also ask that you comment only on items, not on the agendas. We will have comment after each agenda item. With that, is there anybody present that wants to make public comment now? Jesse, did you? What's that?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Jesse Dubell here, Executive Director of the New Mexico Wildlife Federation. And I'm going to really quickly read to you from the North American Model of Wildlife Conservation as listed on the Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies website. That's an association that this agency is certainly a member of, and I think all of the commissioners here are very familiar with the North American Model, which is comprised of 7 specific tenets. I won't read all 7, but one I want to read says, every person has an equal opportunity under the law to participate in hunting and fishing. The word I want to emphasize here is equal, because throughout this whole rulemaking cycle, what this commission has already heard and will continue to hear are the significant disparities between the way that hunters who rely on the public draw, average do-it-yourself New Mexico resident hunters, are treated compared to those hunters who are wealthy enough to buy those privatized tags. And just 2 days ago, we had the draw deadline, 5 p.m. on Wednesday. If you didn't get your applications in, you're not participating in this year's big game draw. The other deadline that happened was the harvest report deadline. Any public draw hunter in this state that didn't submit their harvest report by 5 p.m. on Wednesday is not participating in the public draw, period. But if I'm a wealthy individual who can afford to buy a private tag, that deadline doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. I could buy a private tag tomorrow or next month or in September or in October. Why? Because I have the money to buy the private tag. So why should I be inconvenienced by these pesky rules and regulations that are designed for the peasants, for the average do-it-yourself residents, opposed to the wealthy folks who can participate in the egregious privatized system that exists in New Mexico? So I just wanted to point out one more example of how the rules are not the same. They're not equal for your average resident hunters who you're all tasked to represent on this commission, compared to wealthy folks who get to choose their own season dates, choose their own weapon types, not even have to abide by the harvest reporting deadlines that the rest of us have to abide by. So as we work through this rule cycle, I'm encouraging you, please work to reduce the differences that exist in our system for the average do-it-yourself resident hunter compared to those hunters who participate in the privatized system that you've all created. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jesse. Roy Farr.
I had a handful of things. One of them's turn up the country with four-wheelers. I don't know what can be done about it, but it's getting to be a nuisance. And also the horn hunting, which kind of runs into the four-wheeler deal too. They're already cutting our fences coming in. I don't know. If we could get a season, that might get it closer where we could at least police it during the season. I don't know. It's probably still going to happen the rest of the time. But my main deal was Catron County's in a terrible drought. I don't know the numbers of cattle that have been sold out of there, but we reduced our herd by 2/3. And we're going to drill $200,000 wells where there's some grass left so we can keep our genetics going. And there's no reduction in any of the wildlife. It's just we're cutting back so we can keep our ranch going, and the elk are going to eat all that up. So you can't manage anything that way. And something needs to be done there, I think, pretty bad. And that's my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Roy Farr. Abby O'Connor.
Good morning, commissioners. Can you hear me okay? I just wanted to stand up and make a comment on behalf of the New Mexico Cattle Growers Association and remind you all about how cattle growers and ranchers in this state offer habitat and significant portions of New Mexico, and we are a valuable partner to the wildlife in this state throughout the entire state, offering our wells as drinkers and continuing to maintain and manage the grasslands that not only our cattle feed off of, but also the wildlife benefit from. So I wanted to remind you guys of that statement as you continue throughout your rulemaking process. Thank you.
Thank you, Abby. Brandon Wynn.
I'm going to defer to the next. You said you only need one general, right?
Yeah.
I'll wait for the bottom.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody online, Tristana?
Yes, we have Ed Albridge. Ed.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. My name is Ted Albrecht. I'm a rancher in Game Unit 56, the Malpai Ranch. My family and I ranch there. We've been there for over 30 years now. And historically, we've always had enormous numbers of antelope. But lately, those have dried up. And frankly, it's just been terrible. And the problem has been the rule change that allowed ranches and outfitters to take unlimited number of antelope. We're a mid-sized ranch, and we're surrounded by large, tremendously big ranches. There's been one outfitter that's contracted with two of the ranches, kind of form a C shape around us, and they've shot everything out. I mean, everything. Last year I went hunting and I saw one legal buck, and there's a lot of fallout from this. I've stopped booking hunts. I know guides in the area that are responsible. They've stopped booking hunts and selling hunts because they don't want to sell a hunt to somebody and take their money and not be able to put them on a buck. And I know cowboys that have historically relied on that information or that the income from guiding, and it's damaged their livelihoods considerably. And it's just grossly, horribly irresponsible to the antelope. And it's piggish. And unfortunately, the rules, as they have been observed the last couple seasons, 2-3 seasons, have been just assuming that outfitters will be responsible and take a judicious amounts of animals, not too many. And it doesn't account for the fact that a lot of ranchers view antelope as pests that should be wiped out. And that's what's been facilitated in our region, and I'm sick of it. And I'll say this too, I'm here trying to participate in a civil discussion and help turn things in a better direction. But I think that New Mexicans and people in general, if if people don't believe that the system is working fairly, then they quit participating in it, and they lose faith in it, and then they quit following the rules. And this needs to be changed. It's bad. It's really
Ted, your 3 minutes is up.
okay.
Appreciate it. Thank you. That's it. Yeah, that's all. So moving on to agenda item number 8, approval of Huckabay shooting preserve application presented by Colonel Symbol.
Chair, Commissioners, this morning I have Captain Benjamin Bird out of the Southeast area. He works out of the Roswell office. I'm going to have him help with the presentation since this is his area down there that the shooting preserve application is for. So,
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Mike, Colonel Symbol said I'm Benjamin Bird. I haven't been in front of you guys before, but I am the captain for the Southeast area out of Roswell. Okay, so Mr. Huckabay has filed an application for a shooting preserve. This shooting preserve was inspected by our local district officers, and I've also looked at it myself in person as well. So if there's any questions you guys have during the presentation, please let me know. So 17336, this is what gives us authority to create a shooting preserve. The State Game Commission may issue licenses authorizing the establishment and operation of regulated propagated game bird shooting preserves on private lands when in the judgment of the commission such areas will not conflict with any reasonable prior interest. The commission shall govern and prescribe by regulation the following. So minimum size is 30 acres. Maximum acreage cannot exceed the contiguous deeded acres owned by the applicant. Hunters must use the same legal methods as all small game hunters. Special seasons is from September 1st until March 31st during legal hunting hours. And the regular season for pheasant is December 10th through the 13th, and regular quail season is November 15th through February 15th. Shooting preserves may release legally propagated pheasant, chucker, and quail on the property at any time, but cannot hunt outside of the shooting preserve season. Fee for a shooting preserve permit is $200 annually. The Huckabay Shooting Preserve, this is located in Otero County. Address is 23456 Highway 70, approximately 6 miles east of Tularosa, New Mexico in Otero County, which lies within Game Management Unit 34. And the property is 240 contiguous deeded acres. Attached is a map just showing the property layout off of Onyx. You can see there it is surrounded on the west, north, and partially on the east side by Bureau of Land Management property. The permit will allow for the release of up to 100 pheasants, 500 chuckers, and 1,000 bobwhite quail. So the Huckabay Shooting Preserve conservation officers and biologists have inspected and found the property to be in suitable temporary holding habitat for propagated pheasant, chucker, and bobwhite quail. This shooting reserve, if approved, would provide increased hunter opportunity in the area. The department's recommendation, based on inspections on the property and contacts with the applicant, the New Mexico Department of Wildlife knows of a few concerns from neighboring properties. Neighboring properties have concerns regarding domestic animals being affected by the discharging of firearms. There was also concern about pollution into the Tularosa Creek from discharging of ammunition. In regards to the first concern on domestic animals being affected, this property is almost completely fenced. The reason I only say completely is the Tularosa Creek does run through the property, and where the embankments from that creek have eroded over time, right? You've got 20, 30-foot walls in there that it's not possible to drop a fence down into. So is there a possibility of cow cutting up in there? Potentially, but they have gone in and fenced the entire property except for just that little piece where the Tularosa Creek comes through. In regards to the concern about pollution of ammunition into the Tularosa Creek, like I said, I went and inspected the property yesterday. This is also going to be a shooting range. They're putting up a sporting clays course, 2 5-stand courses, and they also have a 1,000-yard rifle range in there. So regardless of whether this was a Class A park or not, there is going to be discharging of ammunition on the property. Where they're planning on doing all their shooting, their hunting is in a different drainage than what the Tularosa Creek is. There's about not quite a half mile, but there's a ridge between, and it's 2 different separate drainages where the Tularosa Creek runs, and then where all the shooting and the hunting will be to the north of that in a completely different drainage. So any ammunition or projectiles that are fired are not going to be even into the drainage of where Tularosa Creek lies. As far as any prior interest, we know of no possible conflicts with reasonable prior interest as the operation is entirely on deeded property. And I will stand for any questions.
Commissioners? Commissioner Clemente?
How does the department control or keeps track? I'm assuming this animals placed there, or they're going to be introduced in other states. As the case, how the department controls so there is no disease or anything brought into the state?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Clemente, they are not going to propagate game birds on their own property. They will be bringing them in from a game bird propagator. We do have several, like in the southeast area. As far as where exactly their birds are going to come from, I couldn't answer that. I haven't had that discussion with them where they're planning on buying them, but they will come from a certified propagator.
And Chair Commissioner Clemente, to add to that, our permits program requires annual reporting of how many they brought in for that year. And then if they choose to renew, again, we come with how many they want to go that year, if they want to purchase and put more on the ground.
Anyone else, commissioners? Commissioner Witt?
Sorry, it's no bird. Thanks, Captain Bird. That was a nice presentation. I just wanted to know, since bobwhite are not native to that part of the state, which quail species are there currently, and if we thought about how they'll be impacted?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Witt, there is some Gambel's quail in that area, and also some scale quail or blue quail. Also, that's the Gambel's are probably a little more prominent in that Tularosa Basin. There's not a lot of quail currently in or around that property.
Anyone else? Do we have anybody public comment for this online or in Okay. Thank you for your presentation, fellas. Appreciate that. Is there a motion?
Also move to approve the shooting preserve application.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, captains. Appreciate it. Agenda item number 9, approval of the New Mexico Desert Dogs Incorporated as an organization approved to receive donated licenses pursuant to 19.31.3 NMAC, presented by Chief Varela.
Good morning, Commissioners. Agenda item number 9, a nonprofit organization is seeking approval to accept donated hunting licenses. State law 17-3-7G 1978 authorizes the director to transfer a hunting license to nonprofit organizations approved by the State Game Commission. New Mexico Administrative Code 1931-311 specifies that a nonprofit organization must demonstrate their history and ability to promote hunting and fishing and trapping in New Mexico and be approved by the Commission to receive donated hunting licenses to eligible recipients, which are usually veterans or first responders. The qualifying nonprofit organization is called New Mexico Desert Dogs Incorporated. They have provided the necessary documentation to the department, demonstrating their history and ability to promote hunting activities in New Mexico. And with that, I will stand for any questions.
Thank you, Paul. Commissioners, any questions? Let's see, is there, where am I? Is there a motion?
I also move to approve the donation of licenses as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Paul. Chief, if you would introduce Ms. Tinker for the next agenda item, fiscal year 2025 audit. We'd appreciate that.
Mr. Chair, sitting with me today is Jane Teeger from Clifton Larson Aller, which is our independent auditor. She will be presenting the information for our 2025 audit.
Welcome, Ms. Tinker, and thank you and your team for all that work. It's a big job. So thank you.
There you go. All right. Yes. Nice to see you again. Good morning, Commissioners. So what we'll be going over today is the scope of the audit, the overall audit process, the opinions that we rendered within the audit, as well as the audit results, the schedule of findings and question costs as well, that will have just some matters that we identified during the audit. There's going to be some specific governance communications that we have to hold with you today, and then just very high overview of the upcoming GASB standards. So the audit scope, what did our team do? We came in and we did an audit of the department's financial statements, as well as a compliance audit of its major federal programs. For this year, we looked at the fish and wildlife cluster. Generally every year that will be something that we'll look at just because of the sheer amount of federal expenditures that go through that program. For this year, and we'll go into it a little bit later, you will see a difference. There's going to be 2 separate reports. In the past, it would have been a single issuance. This year, there's going to be 2 reports. One is just going to be the financial statements that will contain our report, and within that report, our opinion on the department's financial statements. The other one is going to be the federal single audit report. That one is the report on the compliance audit that we conducted. And within that, we'll have the report on the actual compliance and the department's compliance with the federal programs. During the audit and in the very beginning, we had internal control communications. We did hold an entrance conference in which we also had some very specific communications to governance at that moment. The actual audit process. In the very beginning, and with every audit, we do look at and we consider the significant risks. Naturally, there's going to be 2 that are just inherent in every single audit. The first one is going to be management override of internal controls. So that is something that we always take a look at. Management is just general in the best position to circumvent and override any internal controls that are in place. The second one is going to be revenue recognition. This is going to be, recognizing revenue not in the correct period, making the financial statements look better than what they really are. As I said, those are going to be two significant risks that are going to be present in every single entity that we audit. We do a risk-based audit approach. So every single year we come in, we take a look at the environment which the department is working in, and we'll adjust our audit procedures as needed to address any sort of risks that we identify. We do look at the significant estimates of the department every year. You'll see on this slide here, just kind of gave you some overall big audit areas that we take a look at. I do, of course, look at the cash and investments. The investments are held within the state general fund investment pool for the department. We do look at the capital assets. We test any sort of significant additions, disposals during the year. We look at the overall depreciation and make sure that it's reasonable. We did look at the payables and the related expenditures that go with that. The big thing here as well, we look at the leases. So that's your GASB 87, which is like your equipment and building leases. Before it was just a footnote disclosure, but GASB changed that a few years ago where it's now actually a recognition within the financial statements. And then the SEBITAs is a subscription base. So that's anything that's going to be like your technology agreements, use of technology that is in the very same way treated with your leases. And then, of course, we do the single audit. That's the other piece. That's the compliance audit. So there's two audit opinions that we're going to render. The first is over the financial statements. We did render an unmodified opinion, and that is the best opinion you can get from us. The federal awards was also an unmodified, and again, that is the best opinion you can get from us. As far as the specific audit results, the financial statements and the federal awards, there were no material weaknesses noted during the audit. Specific to the financial statements, there was one significant deficiency that we noted, and then the federal awards, there were two significant deficiencies that we noted. The schedule of findings and question costs, and probably explain within the reports that you're seeing. The schedule of findings and question costs, you'll see that within the federal single audit report. Within the financial statements, you're going to see a schedule of like audit results. Because this year we had to do a split issuance between the two, in your financial statements, you are not going to have any of the significant deficiencies that were reported in the single audit. All of those are going to be within the federal single audit report. So your financial statements this year are, I would say, silent to the single audit. Okay, that's the difference you're going to be seeing. So anything for the compliance audit, you're going to have to go to that federal single audit report to take a look. The first one that we noted, and this is your financial statement finding, was related to accounts payable. And we perform what's called a search for unrecorded liabilities. So we take a look at the subsequent disbursements of the department, and we look at those that are just are material according to our calculations. And we look to make sure whether they were properly accrued at the end of the year, making sure that that expenditure was recognized within the correct period and the associated liability. So during our search, we noted that the department didn't record expenditures or that liability for services that were rendered in fiscal year 2025. I believe it was 2 vouchers, my memory serves me correctly, and it amounted to approximately $113,000. We did propose an entry, and the department did agree and post it to record the expenditure within the financial records as well as the related liability. The two significant deficiencies you're going to see right here, these are for the major federal programs. Again, these are going to be both under the Fish and Wildlife cluster. The first one, and actually both of them, are related to allowable activities and costs. The first one in specific is related to payroll disbursements. So when we test payroll, we take a look at the actual charges, and then we take a look at that time and effort. So we're looking at the specific salaries that are charged to the program, as well as the associated leave. And during our testing, we noted that the department didn't allocate the leave in the grants according to the time and effort that the employees spent on the grant. We looked at 20 payroll disbursements, and with that, we had a net undercharge of 887 to 8 grants. And then the second deficiency for the major federal programs is going to be specific to cash disbursements. We actually found this during our matching testing. We noticed that the department processed a travel reimbursement twice. that resulted in a duplicate payment of $225 to a department employee. The employee was reimbursed twice for that. The employee did pay that second amount back to the department. However, the department didn't adjust its reimbursement request to reflect that credit. So pretty much got reimbursed from the federal government twice for one expenditure. These are going to be the governance communications that we do have to have with you today. So as I noted, we did have an entrance conference in which we did communicate some of this, but this is now going to be more of the concluding matters of the audit. Our responsibilities under generally accepted auditing standards are to provide those two opinions. In the financial statements, it's to provide an opinion on whether they're free from material misstatement, whether due to error or fraud. And then on the compliance audit, it's an opinion on whether or not the department materially complied with the terms and conditions of its federal awards. We provide reasonable but not absolute assurance. Again, that means we have a risk-based audit approach. We use materiality during our audit, and we apply that to, again, look at what we feel is necessary and significant, but again, not everything within the department. If you don't hear from us during the audit process and you only heard from us in the very beginning, it's like no news is good news. So that means that our audit went as planned as we expected. If we did feel that there was anything necessary to bring your attention sooner than later, we will do that during the process, but we didn't and felt just the communication today was sufficient. As noted for the split issuance, just to explain this a little bit different. So the single audit, the thing that actually drives that single audit is the compliance supplement that comes from the OMB, the Office of Management and Budget. There was a lot going on in the White House this last year, with the new administration. And unfortunately, that compliance supplement that guides our single audit and the testing of the federal awards did not come out in time for us to be able to do the single audit at the same time with the financial statements. So our state auditor made an exception this year to be able to do what they call a split issuance, to be able to go ahead and issue a report on the financial statements. And then when that compliance supplement came out, we went ahead and did the single audit report. We had substantially completed most of the single audit testing. It was just a matter of waiting for that compliance supplement to come out. We can't actually issue the report until it comes out. So I think we finished a few months ago for sure. I think we just a few weeks ago got the final release from the state auditor for the single audit report. So we're hoping this next year we can do it single issuance again, where you're not going to see the two reports. But again, it's just all dependent on the White House and when they get that compliance supplement out and released. For this year in particular, just to bring to your attention, there was adoption of a new standard, GASB 101, related to compensated absences. It did require a restatement to the department's beginning net position, and it was a decrease of about $1.9 million. For the significant estimates, as I mentioned earlier, we do take a look at that. For this year, for the department, it was the depreciation related to its capital assets, the lease asset and liability, so that's your leases and your subitas, and then your compensated absences. We did not find any management biases in those estimates. We do find them to be reasonable for the department. And of course, with any estimate, there is uncertainty, but that is disclosed in the notes to the financial statements. There were no difficulties during the audit. We had no disagreements with management about any sort of processes, procedures, any of the things that we performed. And to our knowledge, there were no management consultations with other accounting firms. Here, accounting policies of the department are outlined in Note 2 to the financial statements. We found that the financial statements were appropriate for the department and really none particularly sensitive to bring to your attention. They're pretty standard in what you would see in financial statements for a state agency. There were no audit adjustments. So that means that there was nothing that we had to, just the one with the accounts payable, but there were no other audit adjustments. And then there were no past adjustments. So what that means is that sometimes if there is something that we find in the audit because of the materiality and the amount, our management cannot post it to the financial records. For this year, there were no, we call them unstated statements. statements. And so there were no uncorrected misstatements for this year. The only one entry that was posted to the financial records as a result of the audit was the AP and the expenditure. Just some upcoming GASB standards. It's going to be 103 and 104. I'm not going to go into too much detail here, but we have one more year with the department. And so we do assist with the preparation of the financial statement. So this will be something that we'll be working with them, hand in hand to get updated. That's pretty much it. This is a 104. Again, not going to go too much into it, but they are going to be affected this upcoming fiscal year. Again, there was a team behind me. So not here today is Laura Beltran-Smith. She's the principal on the engagement, and then had some really wonderful staff working with me as well. And I'll see if you guys have any questions for Paul or for me.
Ms. Tinker, thank you, and thank you to your team. A lot of work, and all in all looks pretty good, eh? Commissioners, any questions or anything? Any public comment or anyone online?
No, not at this time.
Okay, is there a motion, please?
So move to approve the audit as presented.
Is there a second? Second. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
And then I just want to say a separate thank you. The department, we've, I think this is going to be our 8th year. They've been great to work with, very pleasant. So just wanted to say, we can't do what we do as auditors unless they do what they do. So just please know how much we appreciate them, and the pleasantness to work with them over these years.
Thank you for that.
And thank you to the auditors and the department as well. I know I was part of the meetings prior to this, and it was very clear. It was really nice to be able to sit down and being able to ask questions and understand this audit before it was presented. I've been in a lot of organizations where it's just thrown right there. The audit is thrown to us in the day of today, and we don't understand anything sometimes, or there's no time for questions, but this time it was really nice. Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Commissioner Clemente. So moving on to item number 11, I'd like to welcome Commissioner Fulfer to our meeting. He has some problems getting online. Can you hear us, Greg?
Yeah, I apologize. Haven't had good internet. Finally got on.
Okay, well, thanks for being here. Item number 11, presented by Chief Barella, is proposed changes to the Game and Fish License Permits Rule 19.30.9 NMAC. Give me 1 second. All this paper. This hearing will please come to order. My name is Richard Stump, Chair of the Commission. I will be serving as a hearing officer and be advised by the Commission's counsel. The purpose of this hearing is for the Commission to receive public comment on amending the Game and Fish License Permits Rule, Title 19, Chapter 30, Part 9, New Mexico Administrative Code, respectively, which will become effective on April 1st, 2026. This hearing is being conducted in accordance with the provisions of the Game and Fish Act and the State Rules Act. This hearing is being audio taped and video recorded. Anyone interested in a copy of the audio tape or video recording should contact Darren Vaughn with the Game and Fish Department. Public notice of this hearing was advertised in the New Mexico Register, the New Mexico Sunshine Portal, and on the department's website. Copies of the proposed rules have been available on the department's website. Those wishing to comment here today must have registered to submit public comments. The rule hearing will be conducted in the following manner. Staff will present pre-filed exhibits. Exhibits admitted into evidence are available for review by the public on the department's website. After all exhibits are entered, we will proceed to the presentation of the proposed rule, after which testimony will be taken from the audience. Participants are asked to wait until they are called upon to speak. In order to ensure that the hearing is accurately recorded, only one person at a time shall be allowed to speak. Any person recognized to speak is asked to identify yourself by name, who you're affiliated with, for the record each time you are recognized. Speak loud and clear to accurately record your comments. After a person is offered comment, they will stand for questions from the hearing officer. The audience may also ask questions of anyone offering comments after being recognized by me. These hearings are not subject to judicial rules of evidence. However, in the interest of efficiency, I reserve the right to limit any testimony deemed irrelevant, redundant, or unduly repetitious. The commission may discuss the proposed new rule after the public comment portion of the hearing. Final commission action, including adoption of the rule, may occur after the conclusion of the presentation and public comment period of the hearing. In the preliminary matters of hearing item number 11, Game and Fish License Permits Rule 19.30.9 NMAC. This hearing is now open. Are there any exhibits for the rule hearing on the Game and Fish License Permits Rule 19.30.9 NMAC for the record?
Chairman, yes, I'd like to submit 5 exhibits. Exhibit number 1 is a copy of the rulemaking notice. Exhibit 2 is a summary of the proposed rule. Exhibit 3 is a clean copy of the final proposed rule. Exhibit 4 is a copy of the presentation. And Exhibit 5 is a copy of Senate Bill 5.
5 exhibits are admitted into record. Paul, can you please introduce the proposed Game and Fish License Permits Rule?
So a summary of the proposed changes to 19.30.9. The department received public comments from July 11th, 2025 to July 25th regarding 3 proposals. And so I'd like to recap those proposals in detail. So proposal number 1 is a $2 transaction fee for licenses sold either by the department or a third-party license vendor. And also a $1 fee for each carcass tag sold by the third-party license vendor and the department. Proposal number 2 is a $1 per transaction fee for licenses sold directly by the department and a $2 transaction fee for licenses sold by a third-party vendor. $1 fee for each carcass tag is also provided by a third-party license vendor. Proposal number 3 is no transaction fee for licenses sold directly by the department, a $2 transaction fee for licenses sold by a third-party vendor, and $1 fee for each carcass tag sold by a third-party vendor. So currently the department charges a $1 vendor fee, and there is no carcass tag fee. And so that's what the increase is to $2 for a transaction fee and also a $1 carcass tag fee. So the results of the public comments that we received, there was 43% were in support of proposal number 3, 22% were in support of proposal number 1, and 12% were in support of proposal number 2, and 22 were undecided. Sometimes people just gave comments and they didn't really express which proposal they were in favor of. So the department would like to recommend proposal number 1 and increase the license vendor fee to $2 per transaction and also have an additional carcass tag issuance fee of $1. And since the last time we've met, we have received no public comments. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Commissioner Howard, you have a question?
Thank you. How much money are you collecting under the current program? If I missed it, I apologize, but.
Chairman Stump, Commissioner Harwood, currently, so in 2024, we received $147,000 from vendor fees. And in 2023, we received $134,000.
And what do you expect the collections to be under your department recommended approach?
In 2025, it would be, so it's similar to 140,000. So $2 per transaction would probably go up to 200,000 in that area. And a lot of the transaction fees that the department collects are used to add to our IT infrastructure and things that we're working on because all of our licenses are sold internally, and our IT department has its own licensing system, which is very unique for the state.
Okay, so if I understood you correctly, you're not expecting an increase in collections for 26 if this rule went into effect? Is that what you said?
Commissioner Harvard, no, there would be a slight increase.
Okay.
My best estimate would be about 200,000, but.
Oh, that's the 200,000.
Yeah.
I think. Okay. Thank you.
I kind of jumped the gun letting you in. I should have closed the hearing. Is there anyone from the public?
You should follow the rules, Chair.
I should, you're right. Did you register, Brandon? Okay. That's right. Thank you. Brandon Wynn. Brandon, please identify yourself for the record.
Yeah, my name is Brandon Wynn. Is this on? Yeah, okay. Yeah, so generally I support especially nominal fee increases to help fund the department because the department, as far as the wildlife management goes, does an excellent job. But when I heard Chief Barella, is that right? Chief? Yes. When I heard you say that that money helps the IT department and stuff, I really support it because I apply in a lot of different states, and we just did our applications in New Mexico. And for a long, long time, like since you started doing it electronically, your administrative services and the IT department, you literally have the best online application system in the West. Like, it is one of the best run government anything in New Mexico. Like, you're top of the class. You guys really, really, and that's really wanted to comment. I wanted to thank you and congratulate you for an unbelievably good job that you guys do on the application. It is so easy to do it, so much easier than the other states. And there's no glitches. Like, once in a while I go down a little bit, but you run a great thing over there. And it's all in-house. I'm really proud of that because a lot of states farm it out and they're horrible. You guys do an unbelievable job. Thank you.
Thank you, Brandon. Is there anyone? No. Those that registered and participated in hearing will be included on the attendance sheet. At this time, the attendance sheet shall be marked as and admitted as Exhibit 6. The comments submitted and testimony heard during this rule hearing will be reviewed by the commission and discussed during the open session of today's meeting. The commission will vote on the proposed rule at that time. I would like to thank everyone present for their participation today. Let the record show that this rulemaking hearing was adjourned at 9:55 a.m. Commissioners, any discussion?
Chairman, I just have a comment.
I was recognizing Commissioner Lopez first.
You can yield to, I'll yield to Greg. Commissioner.
Go ahead, Greg.
I'm sorry, I must have talked on top of you there, but the department is funds itself more than any state department out there, I believe, and so I feel like this is probably a very good thing to what they're doing and trying to help fund themselves here. So I totally support it.
Thank you, Commissioner Fulfer. Commissioner Lopez.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. I mean, I've spoken about this before and I'll say it again. I mean, we drive down the road and we see the price of gas going up to $4. We go to the grocery store and we see the price of milk going up, the price of eggs, the price of steaks. Thank you, cattle growers, for providing us with meat, but the price is going up. And yet the department is still going to charge the public for the department doing their jobs. I don't mind the vendors charging the extra fee, but why is the department charging us to do our jobs? I think the rules should say that the department itself, offices, and if they use, they use their own paper to print it out at their house, why are we charging them when they come into our office the fee? I can see the vendors at Walmart, Big R, small vendors across the state. And again, I've said it and there's been disagreement, but we're nickel and diming the public on this. If the department employees are going to be charging them. Now, again, I support small businesses in this fee increase, but I believe that the department should not be charging the fee. When they come into our office, they go outside the hall here and they talk with Mr. Sandoval, we're going to charge them an extra $1 to print out the tag, to print out the paperwork. Or if they go to Raton, they go to Santa, we're still going to charge them. And I'm going to vote no on this again. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Lopez, thank you. Any other commissioners have anything they'd like to say? Commissioner Witt?
Thank you. Thank you, Chief Varela, for the presentation. I really appreciate the comments by Commissioner Fulfer, and all respect to Commissioner Lopez for his comments. And I really understand the sentiment, but I think that in this case, the amount is small. Keeping the fees equal between the department and the vendors actually will help the vendors. And that the importance of maintaining excellence in IT really makes this fee really appropriate, well justified, and I'm in favor of the proposal. Thank you.
Commissioner Witt, thank you. Commissioner Clemente.
I would like to publicly sustain of any comments or voting on this item, since I do own a business that it is a vendor for the New Mexico Department of Game and Fish.
Thank you, Commissioner Clemente. Commissioner Lopez, I respect your views and I understand, though I feel like it's not that much money. A person buys a Coke and it's $5 these days. And I think that I agree with Commissioner Witt as far as IT goes. And Brandon Wynn pointed out that our system runs really well compared to other states. So I respectfully disagree. And so with that, is there a motion?
I move to approve option 2, or is it 1? I'm sorry. I think it's option 1.
Commissioner Fulper, it's option number 1.
Yes. Is there a second?
Second.
Director Sloan, please take the roll.
Commissioner Witt,
Aye.
Commissioner Lopez,
No.
Commissioner Harwood,
Yes.
Commissioner Fulfer,
Yes.
Chair Stump.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you, commissioners. Thank you, Paul. Next agenda item is presented by Chief Liley, appointment of 4 members to the Citizen Advisory Committee of the Habitat Stamp Program.
Good morning, commissioners. There's no formal PowerPoint presentation, but we have 4 members of the 9-member Citizen Advisory Committee, the Citizen Advisory Committee that oversees kind of our habitat stamp program, that the habitat stamp that we charge everybody to hunt or fish on public land, BLM, Forest Service. There's a committee of 9 members that kind of helps guide that program and provide recommendations to the department on funding and how that works. Again, we have 4 members who terms expire at the end of this month, and we've recommended 4 new members for replacement. We received up to 18 applications for the replacements. You have in front of you on the agenda brief the applicants that we recommend from the department. That's the process that we've done in this, is the department recommends individuals for those. We are recommending Jordan Corliss for the District 5, which would be this Bernalillo, Sharon Luna for District 2, Ben Mortensen for District 4, and then Larry Cordova that would represent Fish and Wildlife kind of habitat. And it has a career Forest Service employee that just retired out of the Lincoln National Forest. So with that, I would take any questions that you all have.
Commissioners? I'd just like to thank our past members, Jeff Arterburn, Art Volmer, James Kane, and John Pierce for applying and serving for the last 4 years. It takes a lot of their time, and we appreciate it. I'd also like to thank all the applicants and congratulates those 4 that are going to be working with us for the next 4 years. Is there any public comment at all, or Christina, anyone online? No. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Lopez.
I move to appoint the individuals recommended by the Department to the Citizens Advisory Committee of the Public Land User Stamp Program, pending the result of a criminal background check for the terms begin April 1st, 2026 and the end of March 31st, 2031.
Thank you, Commissioner Lopez. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. Chief Liley, thank you. Agenda item number 13, presented by Chief Kirk Patton, is the initiation of the biennial review of state threatened and endangered species. Whenever you're ready, Kirk.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. Today I am here to present to you the initiation of the biennial review process for threatened or endangered species in New Mexico as required by the Wildlife Conservation Act. So the purpose of the biennial review is essentially a statutory and rule-based process wherein the department reviews the status of state-listed species. So this is not federally listed species, species that are listed under state law for as threatened or endangered. In this process, it is not intended to add species to the list or remove species from the list. It is essentially a time for the department to collect information that we hold as well as is publicly available out there with interest groups that may warrant in uplisting a species from threatened to endangered or downlisting a species or maintaining the same status. So essentially today we're seeking your approval to move forward with the announcement of that review, and then there's a process over the next few months that I'm going to go over of what to expect there. After today, we will announce the availability or the starting of the process. It'll be a 90-day comment period where we will collate information, whether it's biological or ecological information. Our biologists will work internally to put that into one document. We will develop a draft for you. If my timeline works out, we will be presenting that to you at your June meeting in a draft form. After that June meeting, there will be a 14-day formal public comment period on the draft, after which we'll take additional comments and we will present that final document to you for formal approval at the August 2026 meeting. So that's all I have for you today, and I'll stand for any questions.
Commissioners? Nobody? Is there a motion?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Lopez.
move to approve the initiation of the 2026 biennial review process of the state listed threatened or endangered species.
Is there a second?
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Chief Patton.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 14, the initial discussion of the Pronghorn Rule 19.31.15 NMAC presented by Chief Liley.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, this is the last of the big game rules to open this 4 years. So Pronghorn's our last one. The rest of the rules have been opened, and you've heard presentations on all of those except for Pronghorn. Pronghorn was our last one. Part of that is we've been doing some work with Pronghorn more recently. We've had some concerns, as you even heard in the first general topic on concerns about pronghorn in the Northeast especially, and we'll get into some of the details on that here in just a second. And what we also have a new pronghorn biologist that's going to be starting at the end of this month. So we wanted to have some opportunity for that individual to analyze a lot of the data that's required before we go into the rulemaking. So we'll get into more of the data analysis throughout the rest of this spring into the summer before this rule is proposed for adoption latter this spring or summer into the fall. Just a little bit of background on pronghorn. Really, pronghorn, like most of our ungulates, survival and population growth is driven by definitely female survival, but really fawn survival. And of all of our species, we see some significant variability in survival of pronghorn fawns. We do see that they do see pretty large impacts by long-term drought as well, like all of our ungulates, but pronghorn probably more so than others. One of the biggest things that I think we see too is predation pick up a lot during drought years where we have less residual hiding cover. Pronghorn really depend upon those first few days of life, hiding cover in tall grass in the prairie and in grass. And when there's no cover or other obstacles to obscure their hiding phase, we see predation rates significantly increase on them. Buck harvest really doesn't limit growth of the populations unless you get to below, 15 bucks per 100 does, and then you could see breeding impacts. But above that, we really don't see that. Our buck to doe ratio, that's a statewide for the average. Buck ratio is probably a little bit lower than actuality than what we're presenting here, and that's part of, we do our surveys out of a fixed wing aircraft. Yearling males are pretty hard to detect from a female. You're really looking at a cheek patch at that time. So we probably underestimate yearling males and overestimate females. So it compounds that ratio issue a little bit. So when we go out there and do some winter follow-up surveys, we do get some better buck to doe ratios, but this comes from our surveys are flown in August. We're really trying to get at fawn to doe ratios in those surveys is why we fly that. It's after the first pulse of that fawn mortality rate, and it gives us a pretty good representation of what to expect for recruitment for the following year. And also, pronghorn are one of the fastest growing ungulate species in the world in terms of reaching sexual maturity. A pronghorn female doe could actually breed at 5 months old. And so you have reach sexual maturity faster than any other animal, including males. What we see is the largest horn size in males is typically at 3 years old. And so we're not trying like elk where your largest antler size is about 10 years old, 10 to 12 years old. Pronghorn reach that sexual maturity very fast. In fact, the state record was probably a 2.5-year-old buck. And so the state record is actually the world record too. Killed in San Augustine Plains, but I think it was aged at 2.5 years old. So they can have very high pregnancy rates. And again, by a yearling, they're almost all becoming pregnant if conditions are right. Twins. So the biggest thing with that is pronghorn populations can recover really fast if climatic conditions are right. The other thing is because they reach sexual maturity so much and the males reach it really quick, you can harvest at a higher rate than most other ungulate species, more than others, and still maintain trophy quality. A really large study that was just completed 2 years ago in Wyoming kind of verified that. We've all kind of looked at that, but they went in an experimental design and actually looked at reducing some populations and looked at harvest and harvest rates and really found that trying to achieve an older age class had no impact on horn structure, or even higher buck to doe ratios had no impact on that. So again, fortunately for pronghorn, you could achieve a much higher harvest rate than other species. So as I mentioned, we fly out of a fixed wing. That's the department's plan. We fly our surveys out of fixed wing. We do what we call a distance sampling. So we fly on a transect line. There's some, and then we count animals off of it. It's a double blind observer. So the front and the rear observer don't necessarily talk to each other. We're trying to figure out detections along a band. With that, it has some key assumptions that you're detecting every single animal along that survey route. And when you have, and it also has an assumption that pronghorn are evenly dispersed across that landscape where you're trying to estimate populations. And I think we violate those assumptions quite a bit. We've talked about with our Ibex surveys, this thermal camera integration. The plane is actually getting that camera installed as we speak right now. We will probably be using that for our pronghorn surveys too, to integrate that. We should be able to get almost complete detection at that point with the thermal camera. So we'll know what our detection bias was and get us a better idea on population estimates. Again, I think because we violate some of those assumptions, we underestimate typically on our pronghorn populations than we do, and we'll most likely start having better detection rates and better population data after that. So real briefly, Northeast pronghorn population has really probably seen some of the biggest impacts in the state. And I think it's drought, and drought timing is really important too. It's not necessarily just a drought or not that year. It's when the drought hits. Again, residual grass is important, but also it's really important during lactation periods for females that there's some kind of moisture and decent forage for them to maintain lactation status. And I think in the Northeast it was hit harder. We saw in the Southeast and the Southwest in some years, definitely in the Southeast where we had more moisture at the right times, that probably didn't see the decline in the pronghorn population that we saw in the Northeast. We did do a 20% reduction in licenses the last year and this upcoming year based upon the reductions, trying to maintain that we will keep a buck to doe ratio above 20 to 100. We thought we had to start reducing those license numbers. So that's why you saw a mid-cycle reduction in the mature buck tags in the Northeast population, the core of the Northeast, and we eliminated the female immature hunts within the Northeast as well. Just a little bit of data that came from a study in Oklahoma, just over the line, kind of right on the New Mexico-Oklahoma line. They were looking at fawn mortality and adult and female survival. You'll notice female survival, even though this would have been kind of the peak of when we were seeing the decline as well in our populations. You'll notice adult survival was pretty high. If you exclude harvest out of the male and female, about the same, above 80% on a pronghorn population that twins. 80% is a good survival rate for females, but you'll notice the kind of, I'll say, abysmal survival of juveniles. And that's what's driving this growth, I think, in the decline right now. Luckily, this last year, in 2025, we did see a much higher fawn to doe ratio than we have the previous 4 years. So the timing of moisture last year was pretty decent. We had some early summer rains that probably also picked up right at the right time for pronghorn as well. But you'll see survival rates in 11%, 12%. Again, a lot of that was predation, but most likely, again, in that happened in the first 10 days of life. It wasn't really prolonged predation later in this year of the fawns. Real quick, looking at harvest, this is a statewide harvest and licenses sold. You'll notice that drop in licenses in 2025. That's really because of the reduction in licenses in the Northeast that we did have. And we did cap private land over the counter licenses in the Northeast as well. We capped it at 20% or 80% of the average of the previous 2 years licensed sales. So a reduction in 20% in private licenses as well. You'll look at the harvest, you'll see we harvested fewer as well, and that's mainly driven by the Northeast. The female harvest is in there still. That's mainly coming out of GMU 32 in a Roswell area. We have a female immature hunt in that area around more of the hay fields where we do have some depredation issues, but the remaining drop in females would have been out of the Northeast where we were not harvesting females last year at all. Satisfaction ratings really didn't change between the 2 years, and the average days hunted has not changed. I do want to note that 2025 harvest data was pulled a couple weeks ago. We still had a lot of reports coming in as the draw deadline comes up. We get reports all the way to the draw deadline. So we'll rerun the harvest report. It's probably going to change some as we get more reports in, but I think we were at about a 63% reporting rate when we pulled this data. Just going through the state a little bit. Again, Northeast area is where our biggest concerns and it's a little hard to read for probably the public looking at the picture there, but we consider the Northeast primary, that blue kind of in the very northeast corner, and then the secondary in that kind of greenish color. There's pronghorn in both of those, but the largest population of pronghorn in the state exists in that Northeast primary. That's where we focus a lot of our survey efforts on, and that's where the biggest declines we saw. The secondary didn't have as much in the Northeast, but the primary did. You will notice our 2025 survey data, like I said, buck to doe fawn ratios picked up in there, and the fawn ratios picked up significantly, up to 37 fawns per 100 does. So encouraging for last year. We'll see what happens this year if we get some. They had a lot of good fall moisture in there, so we'll see what happens for the spring. Secondary, you'll see we have a little bit higher ratios in the secondary as well, but it's probably within the confidence intervals and not significantly different. Going to the, southeast area, you'll see that's kind of from that purple area, Fort Sumner area down. We have multiple different kind of what we consider core populations in there. It's not one contiguous. But the southeast has remained fairly stable, maybe even increased a little bit in the last 4 years. Our ratios have stayed very stable in the southeast area as well. And we've been conducting fence modifications in concert with the BLM and willing permittees. The southeast historically was a lot of domestic sheep grazing, so there was a lot of woven wire fence in that area that kind of has precluded passage of pronghorn. Pronghorn really tend to go under, almost not exclusively, but for the most part go under fences, not over fences. And when we have woven wire, it really precludes movement. We also put out some GPS collars and 30 GPS collars a year ago in that area to help get us towards how to strategically do fence modifications. You'll see in some of these other areas where we've done this, we actually can find sections of fence barriers that you could see the collar stop at the fence line and move to different areas. And we've modified those in other areas of the state that help with movement. Pronghorn, probably more so than a lot of our other species, will, we say, kind of chase the rain, if you will, in the summer. If monsoons are spotty and you get these kind of green patches, you'll see pronghorn move to those green patches and kind of chase those rain patterns. And barriers and fences could really be a problem with that. Moving a little bit to the southwest area, the population status has remained stable. It is a smaller population overall. I think it's just the habitat, drought conditions in general in the Southwest through time have made that population smaller at long-term droughts. We did deploy some GPS collars in cooperation with the BLM. We also wanted to look at barriers, but also looked at breeding and fawning periods. There was speculation that Southwest area fawning was occurring much later than the rest of the state, and we did find that. In fact, if you see here, our fawning period in the northeast and the southeast, we're seeing that in the May time period for the most part, as early as April in some instances, but typically May into June. Whereas you'll see those peaks in 2024 was about July 16th and 2025 was August 1st. So a pretty significant difference in our fawning period than our other populations throughout the state. We also, like I said, this is kind of the map that we'll generate for the southeast area once we get all the data analyzed, but this is kind of a heat map of where we look at barriers, red being higher barriers and blue having more permeability, but still a little bit of a barrier. So you could see if you zoom in it, sometimes you'll see specific segments of fence or specific roads or such that are barriers. You can actually see they are crossing I-10. That's I-10 just outside of Lordsburg. They're going under probably some arroyos there and getting that. You could see where the crossings show it as a high barrier along the interstate, but then also where it's lower, where there's some permeability. But there are definitely higher barrier fences within there that will work in concert with BLM and grazing permittees to see if we can modify some of that. We work with private landowners, willing private landowners too, if they want to modify fences and help provide some of that material as well. Northwest area, a much smaller pronghorn population. There's just not the habitat, the grasslands as much in the Northwest as the rest of the state, but we do have kind of a population both on the L-bar and kind of North Mount Taylor area, and then all the way up into the Farmington, General San Juan area. I guess that says that there was a San Juan solar field that's been going in that area, and we worked with Wildlands Network. They were a nonprofit organization that secured some funds to look at pronghorn movements in the Northwest. This is their data. They shared this with us. What you'll see there is the pink is the actual solar arrays. When they put those solar arrays up, there's chain link fence that goes around them. So there's an impermeability across that. And you'll see basically those dots go right up into the pink, but don't go onto it because of pure excluding. Some of the other solar array research that's gone on in different areas, they actually see avoidance of the areas in general. We're not seeing that here. They do go all the way up to it, but we actually, in some other states where they've looked at it, you get complete avoidance of the areas. I think part of it is where these solar arrays went in that area are kind of some of the best habitat for pronghorn, so you don't have the ability to do much avoidance in there. The bottom graphic kind of just shows the core movements of that population as well, whereas the main graphic is each individual GPS point. And then our kind of a unique population, probably one of the, if not the highest elevation pronghorn population in the world, is up around Tres Piedras. It winters along the base of San Antonio Mountain, all the way over into kind of the Taos Plateau, going to the Rio Grande Gorge. But the summer range is kind of up in the Tierra Maria land grant, up in 4 and 52, higher country. And so you see east-west movements out of that population going up above 10,000 feet in the summertime and coming down again below 7,000 feet in elevation. That herds remain fairly stable, a little bit lower fawn to doe ratio for sure, and that was in those couple of years. We don't fly this population every single year, but when we will fly it again in the next couple of cycles. We were focusing hard on the Northeast because that's where a lot of harvest is. There's not as much harvest in this herd, and we had some GPS collars on that herd as well, so we're able to monitor it via GPS as well. So we did that analysis in the Northeast, in this pronghorn herd too, on looking at barriers, and you'll see there's some like very specific fence segments that created barriers, and we actually have gone in and modified a lot of these fences, and those barriers go away. And some of these barriers are very short reaches of fencing as well too. So again, we're in the early stages of this. It's the first time the pronghorn presentation has come up. We'll bring this back to you all with more firm recommendations at the next time you'll hear this. But as we're in the early phases, some of our early recommendations, like all species, and so I'll just repeat some of these, is requiring hunters to purchase a license the day before they go hunting. So right now you could purchase that license, an over-the-counter license right now, and go hunt that minute. We would require you have to purchase the day prior to the start of the hunt, and we're looking at any hunt that's less than a 6-day period, so 5 days or less. Once the hunt starts, you can't purchase the license. So that's a proposal for all of the species we have right now. And then like our other species we've discussed where we have private land hunts right now, over-the-counter hunts, we are looking to do a ranch registration process like we do for specifically like secondary management zone for elk, where a landowner in that GMU who wants to hunt or have hunters or sell licenses, they're going to have to register with us to prove that they have property in that GMU. It won't be as onerous as like the full primary zone E+ application. What we're looking at is they have to prove up ownership through a deed, tax rolls, records, something like that. Give us an acreage amount, so it's something that proves acreage, and then also like a central GPS location of where that property is, so we have that on record. They then would get a ranch code that they could use, give that ranch code to individuals that want to purchase licenses, but it'd be registered in the system. You heard even today at the general public comment, a concern that we hear is my next door neighbor's hunting a lot more than I am, or this property is hunting too many or that many. And we don't have a record right now on who's hunting what or not. We know how many licenses are sold across the GMU. This will let us really focus in on where licenses are sold, how many licenses are sold, etc. We are also considering and looking at, and we'll do it through our analysis as we look at the population status and license numbers, a potential private land cap on over-the-counter licenses across the state, like we did in the Northeast. We're still trying to figure out what that would look like and how those licenses would be sold, but that would be at the next commission meeting. We will have more proposals on that. It's similar to what we are proposing for deer as well, is looking at potential caps on private land over-the-counter licenses. One of the other proposals that we are considering as well, we had quite a few public comments on this during this last rule cycle, is moving that GMU 4 5052 rifle hunt back to a muzzleloader hunt in that area. Currently, it's the only rifle hunt in there, but that is the proposal that we have. We're also, like we'll adjust license numbers based off of biological data, our management goals, and then public input, and adjusting season dates. One of the biggest season dates that we're looking at adjusting is the Southwest to a later date, given that we are having an archery season in mid-August in there. We could have fawns that are just being born, just disturbance to that. It probably could have population level impacts. So we're proposing moving that season later in the Southwest as well. And then we'll adjust season dates to the hunts start on Saturdays as well. And then all the pronghorn hunts that we have on military lands like White Sands or Melrose Air Force Base, we'll continue to work with them to adjust hunts as necessary on the military range. We have already hosted two hybrid virtual and in-person meetings. I believe it was last week where we had that. We had one here at the Albuquerque office and one in Las Cruces. We had 40 people in attendance in there. We've had 16 comments so far already on pronghorn, even though the rule hasn't opened. But so far, there's the support for capping over-the-counter private land licenses. And then some of the frustration with the private land license system. I think that ranch registration will kind of deal with some of that frustration and help get at a better aspect of that. And then we are getting support for that ranch registration. So with that, I would take any questions you all may have.
Thank you, Chief Lively. Commissioners, any questions? Mr. Witt?
Okay, that was a great presentation. Thank you, Chief Liley. I wanted to ask a couple things. First, that shift in the fawning date between years in 24 and 25, that was really striking. Do you know more about the causation of that or the consequences of that?
I think, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Witt, I think it was the drought the previous year. So I think what you saw is females going into the breeding season in poor condition and waiting until conditions picked up that shifted that fawning period. And so I don't think those does went into estrus the second year, whereas later until they had enough nutritional capacity. We see that a little bit in elk too. That's kind of why in our elk proposals we're proposing moving some of those start of that muzzleloader and archery, or excuse me, first rifle season later, because I think we're seeing an extended rut period of where elk are going into estrus later than they historically have, and most likely driven to female condition bringing on when they go into estrus.
Okay, that makes sense because 2025 was a little bit wetter than 2024, so I was surprised by that. But if it's a lag effect, then that makes all the sense. So I wanted to say that at the state fair this year, the department had a really beautiful video of the department working with pronghorn and rounding up pronghorn and moving pronghorn. But that wasn't really part of your presentation. I was wondering if you could just address where has the department moved pronghorn and why have we done that?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Witt, so our most recent translocation was from the northeast to the Elbar. Shortly after the commission acquired the Elbar, we translocated a herd of pronghorn on there. Why we do it is a twofold. One, to reestablish some populations that are either really low. That grassland had some pronghorn in there, but we're talking in the teens. And so we moved probably 50. They've actually done really well. We radio collared those when we translocated them. Fawning is going well with them. That population's starting to expand and grow on that property. That was also in concert with some grassland restoration work we've been doing there as well. So why we move them is, one, to translocate to kind of lower density populations to recover. And two is sometimes when we have depredation concerns on agricultural fields, pronghorn have a lot of times congregate on center pivots. And when we have populations that do that, and we have opportunities to reduce depredation concerns on private land, it gives us an opportunity to translocate to those others. We have not translocated in the last, I believe, 4 years, 3 years, mainly due to the situation with the Northeast pronghorn herd. I think if we get to a time where we see them start rebounding, we could get back to some translocations, but we've ceased all while that population's been on the decline.
Okay, I have one more question, which is about the ratios of bucks to does, which you explained really well. So we have a statewide average of 29, which is great. And then you mentioned that there's a threshold that we don't like to go below, about 15 bucks to 100 does. Can you explain how, like, the hunt in any GMU would affect that buck to doe ratio and how you use the ratio to set limits?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Witt, right. So I think there's two things. That ratio at 29 is probably more like, in reality, 35 to 40. Because you compound the problem. When you classify, let's say you have a population of 150 out there. We'll say there's no fawns in it, but we classify 100 does, 50 bucks. The ratio is 50 to 100. But what reality is, if some of those does were misclassified or bucks were misclassified as does, what we have going on is you inflate the doe number and deflate the buck number. So when we actually go at where we find to test our ratios more than any is when we go and capture them and do these translocations. For example, we moved 500 pronghorn from the Cimarron area about 8 years ago. Starting about 10 years ago, our buck to doe ratios from the air were running about 35. When we actually handled them on the ground, it was closer to like 66, 67. And so I think it's just and that's traditionally the case because of the way we do our surveys. So we know it's a little bit low to begin with, artificially low, but the way we use that ratio, yes, hunts definitely, because we are almost exclusively male driven harvest, that ratio is going to change by when we have constant male and female survival outside of hunting, we can drive the ratios down. And so if we see that we're driving ratios down, we might adjust ratios back up or try to reduce licenses that would get a ratio back up, assuming parity at birth of male and female fawns, which is pretty decent assumption. We don't see a lot of sex differentiation at birth. But we do look at that to reduce licenses. If we see over that last 4 year, we're driving it down. We've never gotten to a point where we're worried biologically driving it down. It's more of driving it down from a harvest standpoint. I do think going back to the biology of a pronghorn too, we could have a lower buck to doe ratio for larger horned males as well than you would in like elk. For example, in elk, we're going to look at a ratio of 45 to 100 or something like that we want to see where we get older age class animals. Deer probably in the 40 plus to 100. Pronghorn, if you're above 30, you're still going to have older age class or larger horned males just because of they reach sexual maturity so much faster than our other species.
Thank you, Commissioner Witt. Anything else?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Lopez.
tell me about the rifle hunt.
In Unit 450, yeah. So, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Lopez, we have had quite a few comments of people being frustrated with that being a rifle hunt and want to move it back to the muzzleloader hunt, and that's why we're proposing moving it to a muzzleloader hunt. That rifle hunt is before all the muzzleloader hunts, and just people want it back as a muzzleloader.
How many comments have you guys gotten?
Probably through the years, about 40 through the last 3 seasons.
And are the comments coming from the local areas or coming from out of state or around the state?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Lopez, it's definitely coming from some of the local landowners in 52 as well, but also from public hunters that have drawn that hunt or drawn the muzzleloader hunts.
So they're saying that the rifle hunt is impacting the muzzleloader hunt.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Lopez, correct that the rifle hunt.
Move the rifle hunt after the muzzleloader hunt.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Lopez, the recommendation from the public and from us was to just eliminate the rifle hunt and make it a muzzleloader to go back.
Population?
Success rates have definitely gone up on those hunts, and so yes, it affects the buck portion of the population.
Can you provide the success rates at the next meeting?
Yes, we will.
Okay, can you provide all the public comments at the next meeting?
We will provide the public comments on that, yes, as well.
Thank you.
I'd like to address that. That's a hunt I used to go on. I was lucky to draw that a couple times. And that was a great hunt, the muzzleloader hunt. And the one question asked to me by hunters that I know, or I come across more than any other question, is that specific question, why that hunt got changed. So I think it's something to look at and consider. Commissioner Harwood.
Thank you. Chief, can you speak to the youth hunting opportunities for pronghorn generally and any recommendations the department might have for this cycle?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Harwood, yeah, we definitely have youth hunting opportunities for pronghorn. They're typically the first hunts as well for that. When we have both a youth hunt and an adult hunt, there's some that are at the same time, typically more youth hunters than the adult hunters. We historically have had youth female and mature hunts as well. Kind of exclusively in the Northeast area was youth female and mature. I think if the populations rebound, we would have that come back up as options too. I don't know that we're there right now, but we would maintain our youth hunter opportunity. And in terms of license numbers, we did reduce all hunts by 20% in there. There's really not a difference in success rates between the youth and the adult hunts in there. And so we're going to be looking at, are those hunts, is the 20% reduction about right or not? Kind of depends on where we are a little bit with fawn to doe ratios this year as well. But our goal is to maintain our youth license numbers in there, and potentially, if there's room, put back youth female and mature hunts as well.
Thank you for that. I think you already know this is a theme for me. If the department could identify any additional youth hunting initiatives for this part of the game, well, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. And Commissioner Lopez, to answer your question on the success rates, that rifle success rate is about 67% the previous year, where the muzzleloader success rates were 32%. So it's a little over double the success rate.
Thank you, Commissioner Harwood. Any other, Commissioner Clemente?
You guys ask all my questions. First of all, I want to thank you for the presentation. Really good information. Is it possible for us to get a copy of this presentation?
Commissioner Stump, or excuse me, Chairman Stump, Commissioner Clemente, yes, and they'll also be posted on the website as well.
And then with that, I'm happy to hear about that you guys are thinking on the change of dates on the Pronghorn, on the Southwest especially. And then if we touch a little bit, if you can explain a little bit more on the registration of the landowners for the Pronghorn. Would it be something like the deer incentive program?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Clemente, no, it'd be more like secondary management elk. So you could go into like a department office and just show that you have proof of ownership in there. It's not a registration as much as like an application. It's more of just showing proof. Once proof is guaranteed shown and they determined real quick at the area office, we'll have something set up in our system just like we do for secondary elk, where they register that property right then and there. And so it's just you're proving up ownership. Some of these that are already like in secondary elk, where we have that known ownership, it'll be very easy to just transition to say, yes, they also have that property. So it won't be an application period, a scoring or anything like that. It's just showing proof of property.
Would it be something that, the reason why I'm asking this is because I believe one of the problems is migration with the antelope, a lot of interaction in between them by fences. And a lot of it is because a lot of ranches, they have old fences or they're not available, they're not standard for them to be able to cross. So I don't know if there is some way that it can be implemented that give the incentive so those fences can be updated to wildlife fences.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Clemente, we do have what we call a pronghorn incentive program, like the deer incentive, just for that exact reason. Looking at, are there properties that are doing habitat or really fence modification, like you said, is a big thing for pronghorn. I think that's one of our biggest, where we've had some landowners do extensive fence modifications, lifting the lower wire and making it a smooth wire for tens to 20s of miles worth of fencing. And we do recognize that in our Pronghorn incentive program. That is an application actually incentive program, just like the deer incentive program. And we do recognize that and allow alternative hunt dates based upon that if they so select. But it is application based where we go out there, work with the landowner and score those incentives as well.
Anything else, commissioners? Okay, I have a couple of public commenters in the audience today. Katie DeLorenzo, start with you.
Good morning, Chairman Stump and Commissioners. My name is Katie DeLorenzo. I'm Western Field Director for Backcountry Hunters and Anglers. On behalf of our members and supporters here in New Mexico, but across North America, we support efforts that improve transparency, accountability, and long-term sustainability in pronghorn management. Can you guys hear me? It doesn't seem very loud. Okay. The current structure in which private land opportunity can expand with limited visibility or constraint is increasingly difficult to justify, particularly in areas where herd conditions are changing significantly. Without clear tracking and accountability, the department's ability to understand and manage harvest at a scale is unnecessarily limited. In northeastern New Mexico, we've seen declines in fawn recruitment, and as herd conditions change, it's critical the department management tools provide clear visibility into harvest and allow the department to respond effectively. We support the department's evaluation of a ranch registration system and caps on private land licenses. These tools improve tracking, align harvest with herd conditions, and reinforce fairness between public and private opportunity. We also support adjustments to license numbers, season structures, and continued improvements to harvest reporting. Timely, reliable data is essential for responsive management and public trust. I'd also just like to note BHA's ongoing investment in pronghorn habitat. We have 2 full-time habitat stewardship coordinators, one focused entirely on the Rio Grande del Norte National Monument in Taos. We've also done work on the Elbar and in the Boot Heel. So far, we've removed 7 miles of obsolete fencing. We've modified 1 mile to be wildlife friendly, and we've inventoried over 35 miles to share that information with the department and BLM to help prioritize future work. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Katie, and thanks for all the work you guys do. Brandon Wynn.
They said I could pull it out. Thank you, Chair Stump, commissioners. So on the presentation, as Chief Lively mentioned, that a lot of the pushback from the public, not surprisingly, is over the unlimited private land tags. And so one question that no one asked, or it wasn't in the presentation or anything, was none of the commissioners asked what that number is, like how many of our tags are private. And I know you will be shocked to find out. I actually know that number. I've calculated number. 64% of New Mexico's pronghorn tags are private tags. I mean, that is such an unprecedented number for any other state, for any species. I mean, it's like hundreds and hundreds of percent more than any other state privatizes their game. So what I would think that the commission, first of all, I would think that you would ask that question, that you would care enough about like who gets to hunt in New Mexico to even ask that question. So, in the future, I think that the commission should just tell the department as a matter of policy, because we have so many private tags, let's put it out there and be transparent. And whenever they do a tag type presentation, that should be in there, like how much of our hunting is private and privileged private for frankly very wealthy people, how much is it for the working class New Mexicans. So on the pronghorn rule, what I would propose is there's about 55,000 something tags in New Mexico. Why don't we do something different here? Just make them all public tags and let the hunters and the ranchers and the organizations figure out where we're going to hunt out on the landscape. Just just do what most states do, make it all public, or make, and if you don't want to go that far and do, what I think is the right thing to do, how about make all the private tags incentive tags? Like if you want to issue a private tag, then it has to be in an incentive program. Because I'll tell you, the Pronghorn in the landowner incentive program is really good for the public and really good for landowners. It's one of the few things in our private tag systems that I really think is great. But it's so small because the ability to just issue tags and sell as many and have as many outfitted hunts on any piece scrap of land anywhere is so easy to do that it makes that incentive program smaller than it should be. So at least make all the private tags incentive only. Like, okay, did you do wildlife friendly fencing like we talked about, which is a critical thing for pronghorn. So that's it. I'd like to see more public, like 64% private. I mean, really, are you guys proud? Is the commission proud of that? Does anyone in this room think that that's what we should have in New Mexico? 64% of our pronghorn tags are private. It's public wildlife. Thank you.
Thank you, Brendan. Anyone online? Yep.
Yes, Mr. Edwards, you can speak now.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, my name is Travis Edwards. I'm a lifelong New Mexico resident of New Mexico, 45 years, hunting and fishing all my life, so love it here. I just wanted to comment that I'm in total favor of some of the moves the department's making in terms of to curb some of the abuse on the over-the-counter private land system. Really for all species, but I know we're talking about pronghorn right now. Not allowing over-the-counter license to be purchased once the hunt starts, or at least one day, makes total good common sense. Makes it tougher for illegal activity to happen of shooting an animal and then buying a tag afterwards. So really appreciate the department doing that. Same with the registration of a property. Right now anybody can just go buy a tag, no idea of where they're hunting, anything like that. So it makes total sense to have that in there. I know the department, they mentioned capping private land tags, which I'm in favor of that as well. Having that unlimited tags with no oversight just doesn't make good science-based management, I feel, for the department to see how many pronghorn they can take on private land. I do think that along with just the caps for overall, I think is a good thing. But I think there also needs to be, when that registration happens, with how many private or how much acreage you have, having a cap there as well. That makes sense. I know it's a lot of work for. I'm not proposing or saying we should have like a scoring system like we do on the E+ program, but just something that makes sense. Like if you have 1 acre to 100 acres, maybe you should be capped at one tag or 2 tags, whatever makes sense to have some guardrails there. It not only would keep some of that abuse happening, but I think there was a gentleman earlier in the meeting talking about Unit 56. So to kind of curb some of that abuse around particularly one landowner selling a bunch of tags, but also if there's a cap for the species, and a bunch of small properties buy all the tags, and it caps out some of the bigger ranches that have a lot of animals to hunt wouldn't be able to buy those licenses because they've already been sold. So I encourage the commission to have the department look at setting those, not only the cap for the species, but at an actual property as well. So appreciate your time. Thank you for taking my comments.
Thank you, Travis. Okay, that seems to be it for public comment. This is not an action item, so no motion is necessary. Moving on to agenda item number 15 is a subsequent discussion of the Javelina Rule 19.31.21 NMAC. Whenever you're ready, Stuart.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, as you mentioned at the start, this is our second time hearing the Javelina rule proposals. So just for a procedural aspect of this, once we finish this hearing today, and taking any direction the commission has, if it's different than the department's proposal, we'll draft the rule and post it on the department's website for public comment. And then we'll come back, I believe, in May for Javelina for adoption of the rule. We have, again, this is the second time. There's a couple other proposals today. Other species will be the second time, but unlike Pronghorn, which was the first, this is our second and kind of last, if you will, bite at the apple before the hearing. So real quick, and I'm not going to go through as much on the biology stuff that we did the last time. You'll see that in most of my proposals because we already went through that at the previous commission meetings. If people are interested in, like I said, these presentations are online and also recorded and then put on there. But just real quick, we ran the 2026 harvest or 25 harvest data. We pulled that data on March 2nd, so we still had a lower reporting rate. We'll run that harvest data again and post it on our website here with all the species. Typically late spring, early summer is when we post the previous harvest season dates. You'll see it's fairly similar to the 24 harvest data as well. Success rates, you'll see we split it out between the boot hill. Again, that boot hill, I refer to that. That's really just those units in GMU 19, 23, 24, 25, 26, and 27. Those are the draw hunts where we have the rest of the statewide hunts are over the counter, first come, first served with caps. And so real quick, in terms of our proposals, we are proposing increasing the number of licenses for our over-the-counter hunts, the over-the-counter cap, from 1,200 to 1,300. Right now, we do have a bow hunt as well, but we're not proposing increasing those. Some years, those licenses do not or they're not fully sold out. So they're sometimes left over, but we are proposing increasing that rifle hunt. And we've seen expansion, like I mentioned last time, of Javelina throughout the state and actually some establishment of populations in new areas. And again, more pronghorn in general. And then one of the other proposals that we are having is right now the youth hunters that draw tag can hunt that draw area plus anywhere in the state. But the other hunters that draw that are only restricted to that draw area. We're proposing allowing them to hunt the draw area or anywhere else in the state if they so choose as well, similar to like what we do with Barbary sheep. And then GMU 28, that is McGregor Range. That's military controlled land. We only are seeing about 30% of the hunters that draw that hunt actually show up to the hunt, and their success rates are really low. So in cooperation with McGregor, we're proposing just eliminating that hunt in there of the 10 licenses. We did hold, like I mentioned, the 2 public meetings so far. There was some opposition and support in allowing the draw area to go over the over-the-counter areas. I think the reality of that is I don't think many people that draw the hunts are going to go to those over-the-counter areas, but it just has that ability to happen. We see that in Barbary sheep too. You can hunt the over-the-counter areas if you draw, but we see less than 10% of the hunters actually hunt the over-the-counter areas as well. We do see mainly support for our increasing licenses. Some people were commenting that Javelina densities are just too high in general, more of nuisance complaints probably, and we've seen that more like in the TRC area, et cetera. And we're even seeing some more Javelina established Capitan, that area. And then we had what I'd say 11 other comments. Some of that's just not referring to even the Javelina rule, or some of those comments are out of the purview of the commission or statutory. For example, like the wonton waste, Javelina is not included in there. There have been some bills in the legislature to include bear, lion, and Javelina as having to require the meat taken out of the field, but that is statutory driven. And so a lot of those comments, again, didn't fall within the purview of the commission. It's more at the legislature. We did, if you all, maybe you did or didn't notice, we ran some kind of hunter surveys this rule regulation cycle that we haven't done historically. We've received 127 responses from that. So we're actually getting a lot more general comment on it. And it was a survey just to kind of feel what Javelina hunters thought about it. And you'll see there, most of the response is they felt like Javelina, that we're Javelina hunters. They just like the unique experience of Javelina hunting. Just it's a different kind of experience. And then you'll see a lot of our respondents are happy with Javelina hunting in general. And again, some people, the lower, we asked if you were dissatisfied, why you were dissatisfied. Again, it wasn't a lot of dissatisfaction in there, but the people that were dissatisfied was just a low Javelina density was their top reason for being dissatisfied. With that, I would take any questions.
Commissioners? Commissioner Clemente.
Any, I have gotten calls and regarding on the population of Javelina population increasing around the Las Cruces area around there. Has the department looked into that?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Clemente, I think we've seen it through a lot of our urban areas more recently where there's water. And I think you're seeing just the conflict that's starting to happen is Javelina coming into lawns, Javelina coming into towns in general. I don't think hunting is going to be the tool that necessarily deals with that, but I do think we're seeing growing populations. I do think we're seeing more of that movement in and just in that urban interface. And so I do know a lot of our officers we've seen an uptick in our depredation complaints on Javelina too over the last few years. So I don't think it's unique to Las Cruces. It's kind of, I think as we have more drought years, we see that with, deer a little bit too, and some of these other urban areas it's just a movement shifting into those towns. And then I think we're definitely getting some populations that are establishing and within. And so we do some movements out of town with them as well.
Thank you, Commissioner Clemente. Commissioners, anybody else? No. Thank you, Chief Lally. We do have David Heft would like to comment today.
And I'm absolutely opposed to giving people who already have the privilege of having a permit in the so-called boot hill units more areas to hunt in, when if we have that resource that can sustain greater hunting pressure, let's issue more licenses to more New Mexicans so they can have that opportunity also in those statewide areas. I looked at some of the numbers from the department, and if the department gets what they want, which is allow those boot hill hunters to hunt in the statewide areas, I mean, you could potentially have up to almost 900 additional hunters in the statewide area. The hunters that have not filled their tag. And the department's only proposing an increase of 100 additional licenses. Well, let's issue another 800 additional licenses to new people in those areas. That's my main concern here. We have an opportunity to use a viable, sustainable resource, a native species that's doing well, which most of our others aren't. I really like to see us give more respect to Javelina. We're one of only 3 states that have Javelina that could be harvested. And we ought to recognize that. And, it's more unique. Boone and Crockett just recognized a trophy category for Javelina. So hopefully that'll bring some more respect to the species. But that's my primary comments. Thank you.
Thank you, David Heft. Nobody? Okay. Thank you, Chief Lally. Not an action item, so no motion necessary. Let's move on to agenda item number 16, which is subsequent discussion of the Turkey Rule 19.31.16 NMAC. Whenever you're ready, Stuart.
Mr. Chair, Commission, members of the Commission, as you stated, this is the second Discussion on the, excuse me, turkey rule. After this, just like the previous, we'll go draft a rule, post on the website after the presentation today. And if any change of direction from the, excuse me. If there's any change in direction given from the commission today, we'll take that into account as well and post that as well. So real quick, just so like the Javelina rule, I won't go through all the biology that we went through at the previous presentation, but just for reference, I do want to put this up there as the different subspecies of turkey we have in the state. Mainly Merriam's, that's the orangish color. And then we do have Rio Grandes along the Pecos and the Rio Grande River valleys, and then also kind of in that Tucumcari area. And then you see a little bit of hybrids of Rios and Merriam's in the east, and then in the south, what you see there, southwest, is in the Boot Hill, are Gould's turkey, really unique in terms of only found in Arizona, New Mexico, and then throughout Mexico, largest of the subspecies, and a really unique population that we worked years and years to recover, finally started hunting at the last cycle. Again, you see a lot more probably variation with environmental conditions than you do with the birds than you do with ungulates, and that's especially true in turkeys as well. And survival really is driven probably by production of poults in the summer and the survival of those poults. Spring harvest is basically males. You know, you can shoot a bearded hen. It's very rare. That doesn't happen a lot, but our harvest in the spring is primarily males, and our harvest seasons are such that timing allows for incubation of eggs, and we don't see that as an issue for population. Fall hunting, as I mentioned at the last time, has the potential for additive mortality on hens and could impact populations. Here in a second, we'll go through the analysis that we said that we would do to look at our fall hen harvest to see if we saw disproportionate harvest across any specific GMUs and recommend any limitations on that. I'll let you know that we didn't, but I'll show some of the data too. This is just looking at license sales through time, both fall and spring. So you'll see the majority of those licenses, they're over-the-counter licenses, but definitely majority driven by resident license sales on both fall and spring, more so on fall than spring. And then you'll look at our harvest rates, et cetera. I think the important aspect of this, and this is some of the comments we did here, was to reduce the bag limit from two birds to one bird in the spring. But from a biological standpoint, we really just don't think it's necessary. And you'll also notice, so that bottom right graph, the bottom line is the actual second bird harvest. And so that second bird harvest is much smaller than obviously the first bird or the total harvest. So it's a small portion of the total harvest out of our birds is that second bird bag limit. So it's really not a lot of people that are harvesting 2 turkeys in the spring. Fall harvest. I think one thing to point out on fall harvest that I didn't mention the last time is fall harvest. We say hen, but sex being hen, but I do think there are birds that are juveniles, young of the year, poults that haven't grown a beard that are males too. So just because they don't have a beard, I think people are thinking they're hens. Just it's the stage of maturity that they're at in the fall to where they don't have a beard. So some of that fall hen harvest is actually probably young of the year male that had low survival rates anyway. You'll see our unbearded harvest in the fall when we look at this next slide is fairly low across the state. You'll look at our 5-year and 10-year average. The first columns are 5-year average followed by 10-year, and those are the different GMUs. These GMUs are the top GMUs, top 11 GMUs where hen harvest occurs. So if it's not a GMU is not listed here, it falls below 10 hens being reported harvest in the fall. So we analyzed that and looked at these. If some of the data would suggest if you're harvesting less than 10% of your females in the fall harvest, it has no population level effect. If you look at 34, our highest harvest of 105 hens, again, some of those are probably young of the year males. we don't see that being anything to where we would be concerned from having a level impact on the birds. That would mean you need a population of a minimum of 1,000. We definitely have over 1,000 birds in that area. So again, 34 was our highest, drops precipitously across there, and most of these units have virtually no hen harvest, some of them very low. So we are not recommending changing the bag limit in the fall for any birds, just given the lower harvest that we are seeing. So our proposed changes are to adjust calendar dates. I'll show you that it's mainly the youth season where we adjust that. We try to get that to fall on a weekend, and so we'll adjust that youth season so it will fall on the weekends. It happens before the adult hunt. And then increasing our Gould's turkey permits. Those Gould's turkey permits are up to numbers, so we determine that on an annual basis based on population status. We still maintain a lot of GPS collars on those birds and are monitoring that. Right now, it's up to 5. We're saying up to 15 during this rule cycle. I don't know that we'll get there. It really depends on what climatic conditions are. They had some interesting winter rains down there this year that actually were really beneficial, and we're seeing that in some of the GPS data that so far already this winter. But again, I don't know that we'll get all the way up to 15. We're also proposing to increase the GMU 8. So this is here in the Sandias, basically. Draw tags from 15 to 20. That population we think could withstand that harvest as well. And then, like I said, we conducted that hen harvest, and they're not proposing any adjustments to the fall hen harvest. Here's our proposed season dates for the youth for the next following 4 years. Again, that would fall before the general season opener. And real quick, just we held those 2 public hybrid meetings again. We had 20 comments, and we had a virtual meeting with National Wild Turkey Federation as well. Kind of comments were all across the board. Some of that reduced hen harvest. A lot of those comments came in before we did that analysis, and so the public didn't have the opportunity to see this hen harvest analysis prior to making those comments. Again, we'll put this on the website and have that analysis available. But then we had some comments on reducing spring bag limit to 1. Again, we don't think that's a biological issue in the harvest in there, and a small portion actually do harvest 2 hens in the spring. So just kind of a range of comments throughout there. Some definitely in support of some of the proposals. Some, get rid of youth hunts, keep youth hunts. We get at that with all of our rule changes, comments in opposition and support. So with that, I would take any questions you all may have.
Commissioners, anybody? No? I do have a question regarding the youth hunts, youth hunt dates. Are those all draw hunts?
Mr. Chair, no, they're not. The season dates for youth hunting in the open GMUs, there's some GMUs that are closed that are draw, but the ones that are open to the public, the youth does have the weekend prior to the start of the rest of the hunts. And that's been the kind of historic pattern.
Okay, thank you, Chief Wiley. Commissioner Lopez.
Stuart, are you ever going to let us hunt turkey with 22 like you do Javelina, other than manner and method?
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, that's your prerogative. That's a rule that you guys could or couldn't do. It's not up to us. The manner and method rules are your prerogative.
You think there'd be a biological aspect of changing manner and rule method?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Lopez, I do on hens in the fall, right? And so I think our hen harvest is low. I think it's harder to hunt turkeys with a shotgun in the fall for sure. And I think our harvest levels are low because of that. I think if you allowed a rimfire or even a different cartridge, you're going to see increased harvest. And I think you potentially would increase your hen harvest. So there is the potential for a biological impact of that.
What about in the spring?
Again, I think you would see increased success for sure. And so whether that relates back down to such an increase that has a biological impact, it's hard to say, but I do think you would see increased success rates just because closing that gap, right? The effective range of a shotgun is so much smaller than the effective range of a center fire or a rim fire.
Commissioner Harwood. True to what I promised earlier, do you have any other initiatives to support youth hunting with this rule?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Harwood, again, I think that's where the youth hunt dates were in there to continue to have those prior to the start of the general season. It's over the counter. And so I think it only is in the same areas where it's closed, where we just don't have turkey hunting where we close. But I think we're still continuing on proposing keeping those. We do, you'll even see in some of the comments, some people wishing that the commission would no longer have youth hunting opportunities. So it's not necessarily expanding because it's over the counter, but it's not reducing and maintaining that youth opportunity prior to the start.
As you can imagine, I have little patience for the comment that we would eliminate youth hunting. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Harwood. How about David Heff? Come on up.
Here, hey, there's a little background first. This will be my 47th year. Also did extensive during my career at BLM Forest Service, a lot of interaction with turkey chapters throughout this state, the National Wild Turkey Federation. Received National Habitat Program awards, both as a biologist, Forest Service, and BLM from the National Wild Turkey Federation. So I don't know it all, but I think I know maybe a little bit about turkeys. I live in 34. I own property in 34. We have turkeys all the time. Our turkey numbers are half what they were 5 years ago. We monitor the numbers every year. And quite frankly, if it wasn't for private landowners in that unit, you'd probably see a dramatic decline in turkey numbers because the Forest Service isn't doing any work for them, and no one else is doing habitat work for them. They're being what we do still have is sustained by the private property owners like ourselves. I'll be very blunt. I've worked with the department since I finished military service in the 70s. There is not a single bit of public comment that's been incorporated into this rule. The department is summarily dismissing public comments. And unfortunately, that seems to become more of almost standard operating procedure. If you look at what the department initially proposes and what they bring you as a final rule, that's the way it is almost all the time anymore. And I think that needs to change. I mean, I was in the virtual meeting, I was at the public meeting, and we all talk about this, us old timers that have been around a long time, the decreased public interaction with the department. And I think that's a big part of it. I mean, there's some arrogance anymore. And you have some really good people in the department, don't get me wrong. But there's an attitude there, they're not listening to the people anymore. And that needs to change. Two specific comments. Enforcement wise, we have a roost prohibition. I think we need to go to a sunset shooting time closure. I know Colorado and Oklahoma do it. Be easier for our officers to enforce. The other one is, and I don't know if it's environmental related, we're seeing more gobblers in the spring that do not have beards. And I don't mean jakes, I mean mature birds. Those birds aren't legal to shoot under the current definition because we have to take only a bearded turkey. At the same time, we can shoot a hen standing next to it if it's got a 2-inch beard. I think biologically, we need to somehow change that so we can take a gobbler, period, even if he doesn't have a beard in the spring. End of my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, David Heft. Okay. Not an action item, so no motion is necessary. Moving on to agenda item number 17, the subsequent discussion of the migratory bird rule, 19.31.6 NMAC. Stuart, whenever you're ready.
Okay, Mr. Chair, members of the commission, this is the subsequent discussion. So after this, we'll draft the rule as well. Unlike the other rules, this is an annual rule, as you all kind of know, because we work in consultation with the Fish and Wildlife Service. Fish and Wildlife Service kind of sets the frameworks, working through the flyway process that kind of gives us the frameworks that we could devise a rule under. So it kind of sets what we can and can't do. There's a little bit of adjustments that can happen within there. Just as for the most part, bag limits are not going to change, and season date length will not change from last year. So we won't see what we had historically as pintails going from like 2 to 1, 1 to 2, back and forth. We're going to stay at the higher. I think the bag limit will stay at 3 this next year. We are proposing couple changes. One is our sandhill crane allocation of the Rocky Mountain population. So the Rocky Mountain population doesn't migrate as far to the north, but they kind of migrate up into the Rocky Mountains, just like it says, and they winter almost a lot of that entire population winters in New Mexico, some into Mexico. You get some in Arizona as well, but our allocation is going up this year as well. And so we are proposing increasing the draw hunts in the Southwest by 18 licenses. We're probably in the middle of Rio Grande at the point where we just are getting hunter densities. Even if we get a higher allocation, that I don't know that we could increase licenses much more without having more just too many hunters out there at once and places to hunt. And that's probably, we do run check stations for the middle Rio Grande. So we hear from every hunter. And that's one of the big things that we hear from hunters is even if we were getting higher allocations, not to increase in the middle Rio Grande because of hunter density, they are draw hunts. One of the other proposals that we are doing is we have a sandhill crane hunt in the Estancia Valley that also can be made up of Rocky Mountains. What we've found is it's mainly been made up lately of mid-continent cranes, so cranes that go a lot longer migrations all the way across middle of the continent. And what we do see is we historically have had that hunt earlier because of the concerns about take on RMPs being high and going above our allocation, but because we're seeing more mid-continents, we think we can move that hunt later. So we're proposing moving that hunt into December timeframe, mid-December timeframe. So again, those are our changes. It's mainly in cranes. The rest of it will follow the federal frameworks. You'll see some of the public comments there. There are some comments that some hunters want us to reduce that length. You could always be more restrictive than the federal government, but you can't be more liberal. And so some of like the Dubs and Mesilla Valley hunting request would be more liberal, having more exposure days than were allowed. We did get the move the Estancia Valley crane hunt later comment too, and we looked at that, and that did come through public comment on some of that. And then we will work with the federal government. We have a Middle Rio Grande Valley dark goose Canada goose hunt that's kind of restricted, and that's more it's in the frameworks for next year as well, so we'll have to wait till 2027, but we're looking at eliminating that as a restrictive and just go as the entire package of letting central flyway goose seasons to occur in the Middle Rio Grande. We're getting more dark geese, specifically Canadas in there. And then there's been some discussion about youth duck hunting. Right now we have a youth duck hunt on the quagmire portion of Bernardo. And so there's been some that they would like to potentially see where we do a draw for those blinds. And that's something that we could look at. It probably could be done outside of the rule process because we wouldn't change. It wouldn't be like a draw hunt. You still have your youth have to buy a waterfowl license. They get a license. It's not like it's limited, but we could look at if we want to have that. It's called the Quagmire Unit B, to where we do selective blinds. The biggest issue we're having with that, like everywhere in the Middle Rio Grande Valley, and probably going to be this year and next year too, is water and lack of water. And so I think that comment came about just we don't have the water and winter water that we've had historically, and that's probably caused that more of a consternation. So when we have good water years, we have more of those ponds filled up. That's not as much of an issue, but on these drought years where we just don't get the water, I think that's the bigger issues that we have there. So, and then this is just the proposed hunt dates for both central and Pacific Flyway, you'll notice as always, we open the central north zone. We split the central flyway from north to south. We always have the central flyway zone open sooner and close sooner as well. And then the south open later, close later. That's due to freeze out. But this year we didn't have freeze out conditions in the north, but we really didn't see probably as big a migration this year as we did, because just in general, it was a warm fall across the continent. And so, but when we do have a more typical season, we see that birds move through the north to the south and then stay in the south throughout the winter. And excuse me, there's the Pacific Flyway dates. With that, I'll take any questions.
Commissioners? Nobody online? Excuse me, Commissioner Witt, I'm sorry.
I always want to ask something about birds, but I wanted to ask first about that youth hunt at the Quagmire. I don't know what the dates are. It seems the water's been arriving really late, so that by the end of the waterfowl season, there's finally water. So is there any chance we could move the youth hunts later to give them a better chance at getting water?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Witt, they go all the way to the end of the legal exposure dates to January 31st. So by federal congressional law, we can't hunt past January 31st.
Okay, thanks. Then I want to ask, well, I want to state first that I'm definitely in favor of eliminating the MRGB dark goose restrictions, which I had asked you about previously and discovered that there's really no scientific reason for this restriction in the first place. And they added a layer of complexity to our regulations in the state that's just totally unnecessary from any population standpoint. So I'd be in favor of eliminating that. And then I want to make a comment on the cranes. I would think it's good that you're expanding licenses. My impression is we never reach our quota, or haven't in recent years, for the harvest of the RMP. Is that correct generally?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Witt, yes, that's correct. And part of that is, like I said, hunter density. And part of it is, if we actually reach it the way it works, we have to shut down the season. Right. And so you can't actually go above it. It's a hard limit. And so we never want to get to that limit, because our biggest concern would be we have draw hunters that if we reach that limit early, if we had like an early migration, we would have to tell the rest of the hunters, sorry, you can't even hunt because we reached that limit. So instead of going that, and that's the process that we've done, is we've tried to go to, we offer the opportunity through draw so everyone has a chance, but we know we're not probably going to reach that limit.
Okay, and related to that, I wanted to ask you, how do you get the information about the composition of cranes that's being hunted in the Estancia Valley?
Mr. Chair, it's bill cards. So bill length is how we normally do that. We used to have a check station that we had to run on that. That was the requirement of Fish and Wildlife Service. It was an experimental area that they were really concerned about RMPs. I think through time, if we keep getting bill cards, especially if we move this season later and we're still not RMPs and more mid-continents, we will try to work with the service again to eliminate that as a area of concern for RMPs, and just put it into our mid-continent areas like we have along the Pecos Valley, where it's it's open during the season with set bag limits and not a draw hunt type of a situation.
Okay, thanks. And the last thing I want to do is just comment, kind of self-promoting our research on sandhill cranes. I've mentioned before, we have genomics research on cranes across the continent that has a lot of New Mexico birds in it. That's going to be presented tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. at the meeting of the New Mexico Ornithological Society, which is here at the Rio Grande Nature Center. Anybody can come. They do charge to register. I think it's $35, but it goes to a good cause. And what we're going to present there is a really neat story about how the genetics of the lessers and the RMP are connected, so that there's actually, it's a little bit complicated, but there's a major gene that affects body size that's jumped from the lessers into the Rocky Mountain population. And what it does is it causes a lot of size variation within the Rocky Mountain population, so that there's actually some smaller cranes that just have that gene that's jumped over from lessers that are part of the Rocky Mountain population. So it might have some implications. There'd be minor implications, but there may be some smaller birds that look like they're mid-continent birds that are actually Rocky Mountain birds, but have that gene that's jumped over. So yeah, tomorrow at 10 a.m. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Witt. Anyone else? And no one's online, right, Tristana? Okay, not an action item, so no motion is necessary. Item number 18, subsequent discussion of the Barbary sheep, Oryx, and Persian Ibex Rule 19.31.12 NMAC.
Okay, Mr. Chair, members of the commission, as you said, this is the subsequent, so this is the second discussion on this. This won't be an action item in June. I believe it'll be the July commission meeting when we have the hearing, but we are at the stage where this is kind of the last time you'll hear it before the hearing. So I guess kind of just diving in to Ibex first, real quick. Our management strategy is to keep Ibex on the Florida mountains and try to get a population of between 300 and 700. We're much lower than that. We're at about 100 and some animals right now. We did, and I'll get to this in a second, we went a mid-season change based off of recent data that we just got. You'll look here at 25 license data. Again, we ran that report just a few days ago. It's not complete. We'll probably get a few more, but I don't think it'll change. The harvest success won't change much. You'll notice we harvested 16, estimated harvest 16 males, 4 females. So not a lot of female harvest. Again, I think in the last 4 years, we've harvested under like 15 females in the last 4 years. So female harvest isn't driving population dynamics. That said, the population, we flew a survey, and I'll show the transect lines from the survey. We flew another thermal imaging survey in, I believe, the first or second week in February. The results of that, the previous one was at about 187 is what they detected. They detected 101. And so we made, a lot of people probably saw the email. Within the rule, there is the ability to adjust licenses up or down, whatever percent based off of significant changes of the population. With the concurrence of the chair of the commission, we proposed moving hunts down right before the draw actually happened for this current license year that we're in right now. So what you'll see is we had 2 archery hunts of 100 apiece. We proposed moving those down to 20 apiece. I think those archery hunts we've harvested about 2 Ibex in the last couple of years. So they're really, really low success. That's why you don't see us eliminating those. It still provides some opportunity. We did eliminate the muzzleloader hunt. There is some success in that, but we just don't feel like we could have that high of harvest pressure on this population right now. We moved the once in a lifetime hunt from 5 to 15 and the youth hunt from 5 to 1. Just the amount of Ibex on the mountain to maintain any quality, we had to move those licenses down significantly for this license year. So that already happened. We worked with hunters that had already applied to refund or let them have the opportunity to withdraw their applications and refund all that as well if they did. Real quick, this is the survey. So what this is the plane with the infrared camera flew the straight transect lines across there. So we did full coverage of the mountain. And then what they did afterwards is contour back around the mountain, starting at the top and working their way down to make sure they didn't miss anything. So they had their detections of where they had Ibex and numbers. They found one Ibex group on the contour detections in a cliff kind of crevasse area that they would not have been. They felt like they wouldn't have been seen on the overhead. So they did detect one on the contour lines. But real quick, this is kind of what the camera looks like. You'll see what it is. They're flying at an altitude at 8,200 feet where the elevation on the ground is 66. So you're fairly high above them. You're not moving the Ibex. It's really coming out to be a really nice tool for detections. We think we have very high detection rates, whether it's, I don't know that it's 100%, but I don't think it's much lower. That's that same exact Ibex. So if you look at that picture, this is when they toggle back and forth from the camera. So you go from the thermal to the camera, same exact Ibex group. And so you could actually pin down to see what they are. And so I guess coming back to our proposals for Ibex this year is we are proposing for the 4-year rule cycle to move Ibex license similar to what we do with bighorn sheep. And so where we make a determination on an annual basis, the population's at about the level when we do this for bighorn sheep too. So we would propose these be all up to licenses and rule with an annual deciding what that is. You'll see what we're proposing is up to 15 once in a lifetime, up to 40 bow with 2 hunt periods, up to 15 muzzleloader, up to 5 youth only, and up to 40 female and mature. I would say that there's probably going to be periods where those up to is a 0 if we don't see population improvement in there. I think we've been looking at trying to understand better like what's going on in that population because it's not being driven by harvest. I think the issue that we're dealing with, a lot of times on these other species, we would go put radio collars on them, put a GPS collar on them and try to figure it out. Ibex pose an interesting risk for helicopter crews and for the Ibex themselves. Just the safety aspect of them, where they live in the cliffs for the most part, trying to get a helicopter in there to capture safely for a human crew and also for the Ibex to where, we can't really tranquilize dart them because they will fall probably off cliffs once the drug goes in, and net gunning them poses a huge risk for cliffs and stuff too. So we're looking at ways that we could try to monitor the population. I think you'll see us flying once the camera gets put on the plane, flying multiple surveys through time to look tracking changes. And so especially right after they give birth to their kids, look at change in youth ratios through time to see if that's what's driving our population demographics or something else, because we can actually detect now with the thermal, those kids will really stick out as small thermal dots. And so we could really kind of count it. That's been the hard part through the helicopter surveys. It's very difficult to classify kids through time, and actually differentiating between like a yearling male from a female is very hard too from the air. But when we get in this camera, when you're not disturbing them and not running them, we can get a little bit better classification. Like I mentioned in the Javelina, we did run the kind of public surveys on hunter surveys on Ibex. A lot of people are really dissatisfied with the low Ibex density and understandably so. Most of the people that do draw a hunt or have drawn a hunt, so we asked the question, have you drawn an Ibex hunt? If you have, what matters the most to you? And the number one response was mature billy. And you'll see that's a function of ours cutting licenses a lot on the males is to try to do more older age class males too. So moving on to Barbary sheep. So our management strategy is maintain Barbary sheep in the kind of southeast, and then we have over-the-counter hunts the rest of the state. You'll see the 2025 harvest data. Again, that will be updated and put online once we get all the reports post the draw, but about similar to the 2024, around 885 estimated males and 403 females harvested last year. We are some of our proposals for Barbary sheep, just like we have for deer and pronghorn. We are proposing a ranch registration for the over-the-counter private land tags in Barbary sheep as well. The other thing that we didn't bring up last time, but came through some public comments and also through kind of the local area, was splitting right now GMU 29 and 30. If you draw that hunt, it's a combined hunt. You can hunt either unit. The concern is a lot more people are hunting 39. They're not even hunting 29. So it's even though we have a fair amount of Barbary sheep in 29, we're just seeing everyone hunt 30. So we're proposing splitting those out as individual draw hunts. We're not proposing changing licenses, but for example, those hunts that have 200 licenses, we'll move 75 over into 29 and 125 in 30. There definitely are more Barbary sheep in 30, but there is in 29. So now the hunting pressure shouldn't be as great in 30. And then we're McGregor range. It's working with McGregor range. We have some either sex hunts and female immature. We're proposing increasing the either sex hunts from 10 to 20. And then one of the things that we do have is the female mature hunts right now are a single weekend on McGregor range. What they're proposing is the hunt be drawn for valid for a month, but hunt on McGregor when it's on the weekends and non-mission days is what they're allowing. So allow more length to try to hunt and more extended windows, and also increasing those licenses. Barbary sheep, similar to Javelina and Ibex, people really value the kind of experience and also the uniqueness of being able to hunt. Most of the people in Barbary sheep, there's 425 respondents in that survey, so pretty high respondent. Most of the people are satisfied, greater than 50%. Have a very satisfied or satisfied. Some of the reasons for dissatisfaction was low density. And the one thing we didn't ask in that survey that we might want to go back out to some of those is if they were hunting the over-the-counter areas or the draw areas. So we didn't differentiate in that to get at if it was there. And then there was, right now we asked kind of the general opinions on our over-counter versus draw structure split and trying to get on that. And there was no clear direction one way or another. Some people really like it and some people really hate it. And so it wasn't one kind of consensus on our structure, one over the other. Moving to Oryx, you'll see our harvest rates. Those are pretty similar to the 2025. High harvest success, still high harvest success off range as well too, greater than 50% success range off range as well. Just under 1,000 males and 770 females. Satisfaction ratings remain really high. Our Wismer population, so White Sands missile range population estimate, range wide's about 33,000 to 3,500, but the main core of that's in Rhodes Canyon and Stallion range. You'll see there about 22 to 2,400 between those two ranges. We have collaborated with Wismer and Fort Bliss on military lands, and that's kind of how the restrictions on getting on. But I think we're doing well. We're not proposing any changes to the licenses or structure on either of those military. One thing we're proposing, like I said, the ranch registration process. One of the things that we are proposing is you heard it at the last commission meeting when this came up too, but also in public comments, is moving this 70-year-old plus hunt from 7-year-old plus to anybody could draw it. So we're proposing that as well. And then we want to clarify. So right now our broken horn Oryx definition has been maybe confusing. We're not trying to change the legality of what you can kill as a broken horn, but just to clarify that definition. So what we're proposing is it shall mean an Oryx of either sex that has at least one horn missing, at least 25% of its normal growth, or any Oryx which has no horn or horns shall be considered a broken horn Oryx. So just clarifying that definition, I think, has confused some people through time. They were wondering if it doesn't have a horn at all, can we harvest it or not? But it's more of just a clarification there. Oryx hunter surveys, it was kind of interesting. The number one thing that they appreciated with Oryx hunting was the meat, right? So unlike the other surveys, this ranked out as the top was just people are more, the meat was their number one priority in the taste of meat for Oryx. High satisfaction rating, 66% satisfied or very satisfied. And some of the people that were dissatisfied cite low. The reason for dissatisfaction was more on the low Oryx densities. Again, we had the two hybrid meetings. Majority in support on Barbary sheep, majority in support of our current structure. We're in favor of the splitting out the 2930 units as well. Some were proposing that we expand Barbary sheep ranges throughout the state. I think we're not proposing that. We're still recovering desert bighorn sheep. Barbary sheep compete with desert bighorn sheep also for forages, but it's a big disease concern as well too. Barbary sheep can carry Mycoplasma ovum pneumoniae that can infect bighorn sheep and have whole herd die-offs. And so we're not proposing expanding ranges of Barbary at all. And then Ibex, most of our comments were in favor of the proposed license reductions, and in general, most people commented that they were very supportive of us doing that mid-season right now, license reductions. A lot of discussion about lion predation brought up, that they would like to see us do lion work in there. Again, we don't know exactly what is the cause in predation or if predation is the leading cause in there. I think we'll start looking more heavily into what potentially is the cause of decline of the Ibex population and see if there's something that we can do from a management standpoint on that. And then on off-range Oryx, we heard a lot of comments about just general opposition to increasing off-range. We did have some support in that too. I think it's important to note that came in before we actually listed the license numbers that we're proposing. So we're not proposing significant amounts of license numbers. It's 6 per month hunt. And so right now it'd be an increase of 1 youth license per month in each one of our month off-range statewide tags, and an increase of 5 on the regular hunts. So each period would have 6 more hunters. I don't think that it would go from, again, 96 draw licenses to 101. I don't think that's a hunter density issue that we had. Some of those comments that were opposed to the increase was more worried about hunter density. It's anywhere off state. I don't think that's going to affect that. And then again, youth licenses going from 24 to 25 per month. So with that, I would take any questions.
Commissioners? Commissioner Witt?
Okay, I'll start. Thanks for the great presentation, Chief Liley. I would like to ask specifically about the Oryx off-range, because I also heard from a number of people that are opposed to increasing off-range licenses, but I see the numbers that you present, 58% success rate, and you presented a number that's 4.1 for satisfaction, but was that combined off-range, on-range, or can you address the off-range component of that specifically?
Mr. Chair, that is correct. It was combined, Commissioner Witt, it was combined off-range, on-range, but I do have success rates differentiation between off-range and on-range. Just let me get to it in a second. So satisfaction ratings on range, if you split it, is 4.2, off range is 3.7. So a little bit lower, but it's higher than the average of all other species. For like elk is 3.4 on average. So still pretty high satisfaction ratings in those.
Yeah, it seems the numbers are, they justify your very modest increase. So I think that seems, the measured increase seems appropriate. Yeah, and the other question I have is, with such consensus right now around reducing the Ibex hunt, have we reduced it enough with the numbers that you're proposing? I mean, it seems that a drastic measure is called for right now. I think we're going far enough.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Witt, yes, I think we did. We looked at those numbers and that harvest. I do think we went drastic enough. I don't think we had to, right? So we're going to be at 6 rifle hunts in there this next season, in the draw 5 in the once in a lifetime 1 youth. And so we harvested an estimated 18 Ibex last year. Between those, there was 5 youth, 15 once in a lifetime, so 20. Those 20 once in a lifetime. So I do think we'll see that, and I think we'll be okay in terms of the harvest. I think we'll again reassess. I see us flying in the next year multiple surveys in there to help set again our proposal for the 2027 season will be an up to number. So if 5 is insufficient or not, or too much, we'll adjust that down following season. But for this current season, given they saw 101 with a higher male ratio in there, that I think that it's sustainable.
Thank you, Commissioner Witt. Commissioner Clemente.
If you can go to the suggestions, the department suggestions for the Ibex, please. And I'm going to continue the conversation with Commissioner Witt. You have female immature up to 40 in 2 hunts, correct?
It would be up to most likely 0.
Oh, okay.
So that it would be like we have in our bighorn sheep ranges, we have ewe hunts in rule. In case we have a population that goes and does well, we could have ewe hunts, but we don't issue that for a lot. So this would be similar, that those female mature hunts potentially are in rule if the population does start, because they twin. If we start seeing a big growth, we could issue some, but I would suspect that we're going to see definitely 2027, probably 0. 2028, I could probably see 0. And depending on if we actually see some growth, we potentially could start issuing female immature to start stabilizing. The issue that we've seen with Ibex is a really big fluctuation in populations through the last, 40 years, where you're almost down to where we're at and then up at 1,000. And we're trying to prevent this cycle where it's really high, really low, and trying to get maintain a stable growth and then a stabilization of that population. And I think just their capacity to increase is so much greater than, say, elk or deer, that we want to ensure we have female immature hunts to be able to stabilize if we're seeing in that growth pattern. We're not there right now, and so we would not be proposing female immature during that.
Okay, and that is good. I mean, if it's going to be managed that way, that is good. Because like you said, that population has increased drastically and decreased. But the actions have made that population decrease. So that's the reason why I'm asking if it's going to be utilized correctly. That's, I guess, my comment.
Thank you, Commissioner Clemente. Commissioner Harwood.
Thank you. So pardon if this is a remedial question, but when you're asking for, on this slide, when you're asking for these up to numbers, is it a department decision or a commission decision to set the numbers for the year?
It is the commission by rule allowing the department to make that decision on an annual basis.
And is that the same consultation with the chair that you used to do the mid-season reduction, or different?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Harwood, no, it would be based off of, like, for bighorn sheep, that's how we do it as well. So for example, after we do surveys, look at the previous year's harvest, we make that right before basically the annual rib comes out. So we make that pretty quick. We get all of our surveys done for bighorn sheep and then the biologists make that determination on what's the harvest would be. Okay. We can't go above that number without going back to the commission, but we could go from that number, anything less on an annual basis based on department biologists.
Okay, thank you. And then can you go to the Oryx recommendations, please? Thank you. I'm curious, have you gotten any public feedback on the 70-year-old and older preference?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Harwood, yes, we've gotten feedback that people would like to see that be eliminated.
Okay, so by inference, a few comments in support.
We've had, it's been about split, about 3 and 3, support and oppose.
I see. And then can you just talk for a minute about whether the department, what your perspective is on moving those into youth hunts as opposed to putting them back in the general?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Harwood, so the way we structure those statewide hunts off range is we have same hunting period. It's a month-long hunting period. Mm-hmm. Right now on all those hunts, like I said, I think it's we have I believe, where did I put it? 24 youth and 96 anyone could apply. We're just proposing moving each one of those hunting periods up one, like 5 licenses, 4 in the anyone could apply, 1 in youth. And so the potential would exist. That 70 plus hunt is in just 1 month time frame. It's in, I believe, the February or March hunt period. We do have a youth hunt during that period as well already. So no, we didn't look at moving that to there. I do know the right now it's highly subscribed on all those hunts, right? So we don't have an undersubscription either on youth or adults, but it was, our proposal was on the increases to increase both the youth proportionately and the adult.
Okay. And then I think my last question is, what are the success rates for, if you know them? I know this is in the weeds, but do you have a sense of the success rates for those youth hunts?
I do. So it's 58% roughly off range in general. Youth and adult, like for example, month of January off range previous year was 79% on the anyone drew, 76% on youth. So fairly similar. We do see differences in success rates depending on months. Some months we see higher success, some months lower, but in general, the youth success rates are very similar to the other hunts.
Okay. Well, I'll just renew my request that you continue to identify places where we can further encourage youth hunting. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Harwood. Of course, now that I'm about 70, they want to get rid of public or the 70-year-old hunts and above. Thank you, everyone. Anybody else? Okay, let's have Brandon Wynn come up.
I'm getting starting to see that 70 limit too. So when they originally put that in rule last in the 2022 quadrennial rule cycle, they put that 70 thing. I'm opposed to that too. I think that you ought to eliminate that too. The reason being is, you know, like people my age and older than me, a little bit older than me, the prime of our lives, tags were easy to get. We did lots of hunting back then. And so it just seems kind of weird now that it's so hard to draw anything to give us tag advantages now. That's the thing. I just don't think it's fair. You know, when I was in my 20s, I drew elk tags every year, you know, premium elk tags. So I'd get rid of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Brandon.
Yes, sir.
David Heft.
I knew you were coming.
Chair, commissioners, you're going to hear something a little bit different from me. I'm an avid hunter. So is my wife. You walk in our house, you'll know it right away. As a professional biologist, I'll be very blunt. These non-native exotic ungulates on public lands across the landscape are an absolute ecological disaster. You know, I've been virulently anti-exotic my whole career. I'm going to primarily make some comments about audads, or Barbary sheep as we call them here in New Mexico, and also the Persian goats, which are not Ibex on the Florida mountains. Both species, major disease threats. Some of the research coming out of Texas is showing that not only are a disease threat to our native bighorn sheep, they're a disease threat to mule deer. The competition factor has long been known. I mean, they're on the landscape for one purpose only in this state, targets. That's all. That's all they're there for. My recommendation has been on the audads. As you all know, some of you know, I've been heavily involved in some of the information efforts we had over in 34 when we had some of our bighorn shot by over-the-counter audad hunters. I've recommended to the department in writing and at public meetings that hunt go to a unlimited draw hunt, primarily so we can control those hunters a little better and get information to them. So maybe we can reduce some of those mistaken identity shootings. And we have to remember, for every shooting we know of, there's multiple others we don't know of. So they've had a bigger impact than we're aware of right now. On the goats, on the Floridas, and they are goats, they are not Ibex. Mother Nature's handed us a golden opportunity here. that population is low enough that using licensed hunters to max the extent possible, we ought to be trying to eliminate them and put desert bighorn sheep back in that range. That's the right thing to do. The term I've used my whole career is that population of goats is a dagger in the heart of historic desert bighorn sheep habitat. You know, the department said they're a disease threat. They're right in the last part of our desert bighorn sheep habitat that's considered disease-free at the moment. That can change. And those goats have been documented all the way to the San Andres and down in the hatchets and the Alamo Huecos. So at any time, we could have one of those things spread. And I would certainly hope that there's some disease testing going on right now to see if that's part of the problem with that population decline. Like a lot of others, I think we've got something else affecting them. Anyway, little different viewpoint. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, David. Anyone online?
Yes, we do. Mr. Thoring, you may speak now. Are you there, Mr. Thoring?
Hello.
We can hear you now.
Okay. I am a 72-year-old hunter, and I can tell you I was on the 70-year-old hunt this year, and there were many seniors out there, and I think just the number that the seniors are applying for the hunt justifies that the seniors are interested in that hunt. A handful of hunters, three and three, is certainly not a survey of all the people that I saw out there hunting. We are at a disadvantage. We do have our lives, our hunting times are not very long. Opportunities in this state for all species are very difficult to get. Only a few percentage points to be able to even be drawn. When I was out there during the weekdays, almost everybody was a senior who was doing the hunting. Okay, and I can tell you out there the whole time we were out there, actually we saw no one take an animal. Okay, I saw one coming off the range, okay, in the back of a truck with a Texas plate. So myself, I advocate that we have opportunities for 70-year-olds. Okay, I've seen that since they have drawn we used to have the leftover youth tags for seniors that probably aren't even being used now. That I used to see a lot of older hunters, some of them in their 80s, certainly approaching their last hunts. The people who I saw out there hunting. And, we are handicapped, okay, whether people want it or not. We can't, track 5 or 10 miles or pull an animal out 2 or 3 miles. So we're out there just to enjoy ourselves in the sport that, I participated in since I was a youth. And certainly would appreciate that we have further opportunities in this state for our senior citizens, because that's what we are. And senior citizens are given
I believe we lost our
a lot of
connection. We're
privileges.
going to move on to Jesse DeBell.
Okay, and I can't see
Jesse,
why
you
we
can
can't
speak
have
now.
a privilege in this area also. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. Jesse Dubell here, Executive Director of the New Mexico Wildlife Federation. Just want to get on the record that the New Mexico Wildlife Federation does, in fact, support
Jesse,
the
can you hear us?
elimination. Yeah, can you hear me? Hello? Hello?
Tristan, I kicked something down here. I don't know if that has anything to do with it. Shouldn't.
Mr. Chair, can you hear me? Can you hear me, Mr. Chair?
Jesse, we can't hear you. We'll come back to you during public comment.
Was that it? So I have another, someone, Dennis Kaufman's here. He'd like to comment. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. I have a lot of Ibex experience. I'm not going to go into that. I like what we're doing. The only suggestion I should make or would like to make is Game and Fish has a new heat-sensitive survey device. I would propose that we use that every year, late in the year, just before the printed rule book comes out, and see what the population makeup is right now, just before we try to set the seasons that don't even start for another year. I like the up to numbers, except we should probably set them higher. We can't predict what the weather's going to be, how the cougar population is going to be, how the vegetation is going to be, how successful or unsuccessful the predation is going to be on the kids. So let's set that number high and let it be an up to number so that we can look back at what we did last year and maybe the year before and see how what we've been doing has affected the population, keeping in mind that the weather and the predation may have influenced the population as well. If it's an up to number, it doesn't matter how big it is. If it was 1,000 in each category, if it's still an up to number, we can set that number based on the most recent survey. If the number is too small in any of the categories and we're limited by the 4-year rule, then we're limited. We can't control what would otherwise be a bad choice. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cosson. Oh, were we able to get Jesse back? No. Okay, this is not an action item, so no motion is necessary. Stuart, thanks for all those presentations. That was a lot of work putting that together. Okay, we're at a place where we could keep going and finish or go for lunch. Commissioners? I'd like to keep going. Well, it'll be ready in an hour. But let's take a 5-minute break so we can hit the bathroom and then continue, right? Sound good?
You forget the battery.
Okay, agenda item number 19, initial discussion of the hunting and fishing licenses and applications rule 19.31.3 NMAC presented by Chief Paul Varela. Go ahead, Paul.
Chairman, Commissioners, agenda item 19 is similar to the proposed changes to 1930.3.11. This is the mobility impaired provision. So currently, the mobility impaired provision provides to hold a mobility impaired deer, elk, Oryx, or Pronghorn license, a person must submit verifiable documentation on the proper department form that is attested to by a certified medical physician, and the individual demonstrates a permanent mobility restriction which limits their activity to a walker, wheelchair, or crutches, or one or more permanent disabilities or conditions which substantially limit the individual's ability to walk. So the department proposes adding the word permanent instead of and eliminating the last sentence, which says every person qualified as mobility impaired shall have their card or eligibility expired 48 months from the issuance date and must resubmit their application every 48 months, which is the current way this rule reads. So we'd like to eliminate that and make this provision permanent for mobility impaired hunters. And with that, we'll stand for any questions.
Commissioners.
Thank you. Can you explain the feedback you got that drove this rule suggestion?
Commissioner Howard, this is the initial discussion. We haven't sought feedback yet.
I see.
from the public. We will going forward.
And did you get some feedback outside of the rulemaking sequence for this suggestion, or is this a department initiative?
Commissioner Harwood, we have received input from guests during commission meetings, which have advocated to make this rule permanent. I'm not exactly sure why the rule was intended for 48 months. That was a previous commission's decision. And so it just kind of makes sense to make it permanent for people that qualify.
Thank you very much.
Commissioner Witt.
Yeah, I just want to say I support the change. I think it's in the right direction. So thanks, Chief Varela.
Commissioners?
So just for clarification, it will be a permanent mobility impair certification.
Chairman, Commissioner Clemente, yes, that'd be permanent. So you wouldn't have to reapply every 48 months.
I'm in favor of
that. Permanent for specific individuals, correct?
Mr. Chairman, yes, that's correct.
Okay. Well, of course, I'm in favor of this as well. So looks like we have some public comment from Charlie Trask.
So I'm a lifer. I'm a native. I was advocating this rule change because of my experience as a mobility hunter. I really appreciate the department's stance, I guess you could say, on mobility or advocating mobility impaired hunting set-asides and whatever you all can do in terms of access. But I ran into this rule on my having to re-up. And as you all probably know, in New Mexico, it's very difficult to get a doctor or to get a doctor's appointments and to get transportation to the doctor and all those kinds of things. And so I suggest that this is a rule change for that reason. And also it'll take some of the burden off the department because the department has to process all these things. They only have to do it once and you're done. So I'm very grateful that y'all have listened to that and that we can go forward, get this rule changed. And I appreciate the opportunity to stand in front of you. Hopefully I can continue to do that in the future. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Trask. Anyone online? No. Okay, not an action item, so the motion is necessary. Thank you, Paul. Okay, here we are, second general public comment period. As a reminder, if you spoke in the first session this morning, we ask that you refrain from speaking again. And we have quite a few, actually. So let's start with Annabella Miller.
Thank you. Good afternoon now. My name is Annabella Miller, and I'm with the Western Landowners Alliance. I represent the Alliance as our New Mexico Resource Coordinator. I think I'm a little tall for the microphone. I'd just like to start by saying that landowners are not a monolith. Many landowners in New Mexico are working class people who manage their land specifically for wildlife. And by doing so, they contribute significant personal investments, including time and money. And a lot of these investments include restoration, water conservation improvements, fencing for wildlife. And the thing that landowners do have in common, regardless of their wealth or the size of their acreage, is they're managing for wildlife specifically, many of these at least, and specifically the ones that are that I represent in the WLA. And we have thousands of people that are part of our organization. It's, I think, over 30,000 across the West that are specifically part of our members because they want to learn the newest science and management tools in order to support wildlife on private lands. And so we know that you, the commission, and the people here today understand the contribution that private landowners play in supporting New Mexico wildlife. And we just continue to ask that you continue to consider them in your decision-making process and view them as partners. So thank you.
Thank you, Annabella. Leslie Allison.
Commissioners, let's see. All right, can you hear me there? Hi, Commissioners. My name is Leslie Allison. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of the Western Landowners Alliance, lifetime New Mexican hunter, family hunts, both public and private land. And what I wanted to say, and it will reinforce what Annabella just said, is that private lands play an enormous role, as you all know, in New Mexico. It's about half of the land and the habitat in the state. And that comes at a tremendous cost to someone, and that someone is the private landowner. And I don't know if you all have seen yet, there's a new New Mexico State University study out on the costs of sustaining elk on the private lands. And the figures are impressive. $230 an acre has been the cost in forage to sustaining elk populations, $20 an acre for the fencing damage and the other maintenance. So that right there is $250 an acre. On top of that, they've got $97 million in property tax being paid from farms and ranches in New Mexico. And that equates to about $2.20 an acre. And then we just finished a study with Southwick Associates out of Florida and found that landowners are contributing about $5.18 an acre out of pocket to habitat conservation as well across the West, including New Mexico. So you've got about $262 an acre coming from the private land contributor to these things. And we know and respect very much what the sportsmen contribute through Pittman Roberts and Dingle Johnson and license fees. All totaled, that comes out to less than $1 an acre in New Mexico. And most of that goes onto the public land, not to the private land. So when we talk about fairness and a future for wildlife, we've got to keep that in mind. Who's contributing when we talk about those things, and how we continue to incentivize that contribution and support that into the future. Because as Aldo Leopold said, we don't have wildlife without habitat. And it's the private land habitat that's at risk and is diminishing rapidly. We lost 1.5 million acres of farms in the last agricultural census from 2017 to 2022. So if we want a future for elk, for wildlife, for hunting, we have got to be working with and not against the private landowners. Thank you all.
Thank you, Leslie. Brandon Wynn.
Thank you, Chair, Commission. I'm going to talk about two things real quick. So first of all, on the private land, everything that Ms. Allison just said about private land is true all across the West. And, you know, for instance, and no other game commission or legislature comes even close, like within an order of magnitude of privatizing as many tags. So we have the same situation, same contributions. The other commissions and legislatures have honored their public trustee obligations to all the people of the state, not just landowners and wealthy hunters. So, but I want to talk about something else. So, you know, based on the way all the drafts of the rules are written, it doesn't appear that the Game Commission is going to touch private tags at all this year, again, for the 10th rule cycle in a row. But one thing that you could possibly do to create just a tiny a fraction more of non-privatized tags, public resident tags, is in the outfitter, the way the department interprets the outfitter set aside for the resident only tags. So I'm talking about wildlife management area tags and the cow elk tags. So I was at the legislature in the committee room when the current quota law was passed. It started out as a straight 90-10 quota law with no outfitter set aside like most states. And so, I mean, you can call it a compromise, but just the public got freight trained. one thing they did was to kind of ease the pain of having the outfitters set aside at all was they made cow tags and wildlife management area tags resident only. And so what I think the commission should direct the department to do is to quit interpreting the outfitter set aside if it's a resident that applies within that pool, that makes it a resident only tag. Because if you look at it, there's no other instance where the outfitter pool has a residency standard. So the commission and the department have pushed the limits of the law to apply a residency standard for only one purpose, as far as I know, in all the rules and interpretations, the way they dole out tags. Just this one instance, they did that to make it to where 10% of the supposedly resident only, unguided, and resident only in every other interpretation means unguided resident pool. So I think that the law actually dictates that the more proper decision would be not to do that. So it's being pushed to take tags away. What am I talking about? There's about 136 hunt codes that are cow, elk, or wildlife management area hunts. There's only 136. We have about 900. Whatever. And then it's 100. It comes out to 178 tags that you would make it to where residents don't have to pay a private individual. There's no private paywall to get what's supposed to be a resident only public tag by a reasonable interpretation of the law. That's something you could do. Can you just give us less than 200 tags back to the real resident public? Thank you.
Thank you, Brandon. Carrie Romero.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, Carrie Romero on behalf of the New Mexico Council of Outfitters and Guides. I'm going to talk really fast because I've got like 5 things and they're mostly general, but I want to squeeze them into 3 minutes. First and foremost, in case you didn't know, you are in the presence of Florida Mountain Ibex royalty. Dennis Kaufman is probably the one person on the face of the earth that knows more about that mountain and about that Ibex herd than anyone else on the planet. So he's spent more time there on that mountain. He has more years, more historical context of what goes on with that Ibex herd. So when he stands up and says like he's in favor of the rule change, you guys know you're doing something right because he knows a lot about Ibex. Okay, secondly, in terms of policy, okay, just mostly for Commissioner Harwood's benefit, although I know you know a lot about the Open Meetings Act, so you probably already know this, but your opportunity as the commission to give feedback to the department to add anything that you want to change that they have not proposed already changing is during the subsequent meeting. Once the issue goes to the actual hearing, you do not have the ability to change anything. You have no flexibility. That rule has to be on the register for 30 days unchanged before it is approved. So if you get to the hearing and you decide you want to change something, it's way too late. So you have to make sure that you understand all of the proposals that are given by the department and give them feedback on any additional things that you want to change. That's something that, like Dave Heft was saying earlier, has kind of changed over time. And so I don't think it necessarily is impeding public comment, but it's something that the public, we've had to kind of change our strategy. And so I'm just kind of communicating with you that our opportunity to communicate with you guys is between the initial and the subsequent. After the subsequent, public comment doesn't really matter anymore. Okay. In general, we're in favor of like everything that, and you guys got my letter the other day, so we're in favor of everything that has been proposed, and we appreciate the departments working with us on some things to get some things added. And we are in favor of registering ranches on the private land side. We are in favor of having to purchase a license a full day in advance before the hunt. So all of those things are great. We're really glad to see that happening. And then going to the buzzword that I just hate to my core, which is privatization, which you hear it over and over and over again. Just want to remind you guys that while I fundamentally disagree with some of the definition of what privatization means to some people in this room, these tags are licenses sold that are being hunted on private land. That is not privatization. This is an access fee that is being charged. These licenses are, and it's not even outside of the E+ program. And I will go back and say, just on Pronghorn, we were in favor of A+. We were the one group that did not like the fact that we were going to go away from A+. A+ worked for us. We would love to go back to A+. Actually, it was the other groups that were proposing unlimited over the counter. And here we are 10 years later, and they're kind of almost proposing to go back to A+. So it's a trespass fee. It's access. It's your access to hunt on private land. It's not privatization. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. Nobody? Sure. Jesse submitted a comment by photograph because he can get through from, can't remember what agenda it was, but we'll go ahead and read it. Agenda item.
Yeah, I've offered to read Jesse's comment, which starts with, I don't know why my audio doesn't work, but goes on to say, NMWF supports the elimination of the 70-plus-year-old Oryx hunts. So got that in the record.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Harwood. Commissioners, does anybody have any comments in general?
I want to compliment the chair for running a great meeting today.
Unnecessary, but thank you. I would like to thank everyone here today for being here and participating in our Wildlife of New Mexico. And thank you for being civil with everyone, and we appreciate you being here. Our next meeting, because of commissioner scheduled conflicts, will be on May 28th, and that will be held in Socorro. So the next agenda item is executive session. Is there a motion to enter into executive session?
Yes, I'd like to move to adjourn into executive session, close to the public pursuant to section 10-15-1 H8 NMSA 1978 to discuss property purchase, acquisition, or disposal pursuant to section 10-15-1 H7 NMSA 1978 to discuss attorney-client litigation matters.
Is there a second?
Second.
Director Sloan, please call the roll.
Yes.
Commissioner Lopez,
Yes.
Commissioner Harwood,
Yes.
Commissioner Fulfer is not here. Vice Chair Clemente,
Yes.
Chair Stump.
Yes, motion passes. We are now adjourned into executive session. This commission had adjourned into executive session, closed to the public. During the executive session, the commission discussed only those matters specified in its motion to adjourn, and it took no action as to any matter. Are there any motions, commissioners?
Yes, I have a motion. I so move to approve the purchase of property consisting of plus or minus 10,990 acres in Grant County, and to further authorize the chair of the state game commissioners or designee to execute and deliver any and all documents necessary to complete the purchase of said property.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you all for joining us here today. Our next meeting is May 28th in Socorro. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn, Mr. Chair.
Is there a second?
Second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. We stand adjourned.